In the Pacific Northwest in 1983, outsiders Red and Mandy lead a loving and peaceful existence. When their pine-scented haven is savagely destroyed by a cult led by the sadistic Jeremiah Sand, Red is catapulted into a phantasmagoric journey filled with bloody vengeance and laced with deadly fire. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we'll be covering 2018's Mandy, directed by Panos Cosmatos. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to this very special feature presentation episode. Very special because it's not just me and it's not just Zoheb. Zoheb, how you doing?
How you doing? What's up?
Yeah, that's great. Anyway.
Fuck you, you do this to me every time.
Because with us is, for the third time, coming up to bat for the third time, going to third base with us, is Matthew Anderson from LSG Media. Matthew, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm real good. Real horny for this one. So ready.
Well, I'm glad one of us is. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, it's all right. Here, let's start with this. This was definitely Matt's pick, and I was like, dude, yeah, I haven't seen this yet. I'm definitely down to see it. It seems like something that we would probably honestly never cover, and it's not a bad movie at all. Just to kind of let my little nip show and give my little opinions right off the rip. I don't think it's a bad movie, but it's just not. Like, I feel like this falls into like the Requiem for a Dream, Jacob's Ladder kind of shit that I'm like, I need to watch this like once every 10 years and I'm good. Like that's like all I need to do. And it's good though. I'm glad I watched it. But
dude, while we're here, let's give some background, right? So we had to reschedule this episode and
like 20 times,
dude, like we were like ready to record, ready to go a couple of weeks ago. I'd watched the movie, we were like ready to like jump on the mics and here we go, but we had to delay it, right? And then like we rescheduled, and I was like, "Fuck! I gotta watch this movie again. I gotta watch this depressing ass movie again."
Woo! Fuck yeah! Make him watch it again.
Well, guys, just really quick, just to get it out of the way, if you want to find us on any of our socials, you can find us on Facebook at Midnight Double Feature. We're on Instagram at Midnight Double Feature. We're on Twitter at MDF Pod. You can shoot us an email, midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com. You can always rate and review us on iTunes. Let us know how we're doing. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. Actually, I think Zoheb just did kind of like a promotional thing with the ratings. If you go on there and you give us a rating and type something out, then we kind of, what is it? We give somebody a pick, or we're putting their name into a raffle, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, we're gonna basically, if you leave us a review, then what we're gonna do is we want you to email that in. So the email is midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com, and just send us a screenshot of your review and your one choice of movie that you would like us to cover. So this is it's kind of like a, hey, we're gonna whore ourselves out so we can get a review. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. We've already got a couple of entries, and the movies that have been suggested so far are movies that I am, I don't know, not looking forward to covering. Sorry, Patrick Harrington. No, I love it. I love it, dude.
Come on, man. My Pony Little Adventure makes some pretty good fucking movies. Don't knock it till you tried it.
Yeah. I mean, like, just don't make us watch The Human Centipede or some shit,
Yeah, Jesus.
But no, I love that that's going on. The ratings, they help so much. We always stress them so much in the episode, and we're like, well, let's kind of incentivize, but also at the same time, like, it's asking people review and asking people review. I think this shows how much, how much that helps us and how far we're willing to go to suck your dick to review us. So Matt Anderson didn't actually write a review for us. He just gave us both hand jobs. So that's how he got on for the third time.
At the same time. I got two hands.
The bearded wonder, the bearded wonder, they call him at the glory hole. No, I'm just kidding. But guys, this is going to be a really fun episode. We got our socials out of the way. Let's go ahead and jump in with our initial impressions. Matt, you're the guest. This is your pick. Start us off here.
Oh, fun. Well, I know it's probably, you guys are probably like raising an eyebrow when I suggest this because you're like, didn't you fucking talk about this on your podcast already? What the fuck? The truth is, I realized something about myself. I have started to become kind of obsessed with this movie. I fucking love this movie. It's probably top 3, maybe top 2 of all time for me. Like I fucking
holy shit,
adore this movie.
That's a big tall order,
right?
Dude, that's a bold statement.
It is, and I mean it, because this is probably, this viewing now for the podcast is probably my 15th viewing of this movie. I've watched a lot of. I know.
Are you possessed?
A little bit. And you know, I totally get what you were saying when you mentioned it earlier, Zoeb. Like when I first saw this in theaters, I actually had a hard time enjoying it because for the second half of the movie, I could not get over the brutal murder of Mandy. I was like, that just bummed me the fuck out. And I like was so sad and just didn't feel good about the movie. And after I got out, I was like, it was good. I really liked it, but it just made me feel so awful. Finally forced myself to watch it again. And that second viewing was like, oh, holy shit, this is great. And every single viewing, every subsequent viewing, I've only loved it more. I only love it more and more and more. And now, I also wanted to do it on you guys' podcast because this is going to sound weird. I'm not going to lie. I am not. You guys hold on to your butts. I'm going to sound a little bit like the fucking Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with like the fucking push pins on the wall and all the strings together, like putting up
Charlie
my
Day.
fucking weird theory. This is one of the very few movies that it's not 100% of the way there yet. I'm probably only like 65, 70% of the way of like figuring it out. But I have like a whole cohesive theory of what this movie actually is and is saying.
Fuck yeah.
And I can't wait to get into it. And here's the two tidbits I'll give you. For one, it is all, and I mean it when I say it, all about color. The whole movie is about color. And I know that sounds weird, but we'll go through it as we get into this. I'll explain what that means. And my other weirder part of the theory, I'll admit, where I'm like, people are like, you're fucking high, right? Like, what are you talking about? Is that in truth, the characters of Red and then Jeremiah Sand, the cult leader, they are two halves of the same person. It's like a weird psychological story. It's a metaphorical story about emotions and people and their different like psychological formations, like the id and the ego. Like, it's one guy with two different emotional versions of himself. And now pass the blunt, okay? So I promise you this will make more sense as we go through it. I know I sound fucking insane, but I'm obsessed with this movie. It's so fucking good, guys. It's so good. I am just hungry and horny for the next thing fucking Panos Cosmatos comes out with. I'm so ready for it. Super pumped. So I'll stop. I'll go ahead and let one of you take over from here.
Well, had you seen the what is the first one that he did? Something, the Black Rainbow?
Oh, yeah. Beyond the Black Rainbow. I have not watched that yet. I really need to.
Yeah, I mean, and also, as we were talking about off air, Panos Cosmatos, son of George P. Cosmatos, who did fucking Tombstone and Cobra and a bunch of other shit. But I mean, I will, and here's why I love that, because the LSG's bonus episode of Cobra, I was telling my friend Michael Grizzard, who is actually in the after party, he's a listens to the show, and he comes on Facebook and stuff, and you can find him on there as well if you want to have fun on our socials. But he came over and I was like, you've got to listen to this Cobra episode, because it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. I think it's fucking like, my girlfriend, who does not listen to LSG, maybe a little bit here and there if I'm listening to it, we listen to Cobra on the way back from like a trip, and we were both just fucking crying by the time we were coming home. I'm just, you guys doing Stallone, like, drop it. That's like all I'm like, now that's we literally say it to each other all the time. That's fucking hilarious. So that's my plug for LSG Media's membership, the Illuminati.
LSG's, I mean, your guys' like impression of Stallone is top notch. One of my favorite episodes is Judge Dredd. Like when you guys did the commentary for that too. Death! I fucking love it. It's my favorite.
Incinerator.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's fucking great. But that's our plug for LSG. I mean, this might be, I always have to think this might be the first episode that somebody's heard, but I'm like, if you've listened repeatedly, obviously, we're big fans of LSG, and we love having these guys on. Consider membership. It's, what is it, lsgmedia.net/join? Is that right?
It's libertystreetgeek.net/join. There we go. Yeah.
There we go. Man, yeah, but you can go there and be members, just like Zoheb and I are proud card-carrying members of the Illuminati.
Indeed.
But after that shameless plug, and our shameless plug for the reviewers, let's go to Zoheb. Zoheb, what did you think about this movie?
Well, man, it's funny because I've got so many thoughts about this movie, and at the same time, I have zero thoughts about this movie. Like, I don't, like I know what I saw and what I experienced, but I still don't know what I saw.
You're in denial over it,
dude. I am so like of two halves of this. Like, and Matt, when you said I have answers, I'm just like, thank God. Like, dude, I'm just like, I need some answers, man. Like, this is. I feel like, I feel like, please, sir, may I have some more? Like, I feel like I'm begging you for answers, man.
Do you remember the character in this movie? He's only in it for like a few short minutes, but he's the LSD like chemist who talks to him, and he's just like, "Hey, man," like that weird fucking guy. That's me now. I'm gonna be your weird LSD chemist, like spirit guide for this fucking movie.
Dude, please let that be you. Like, I need that to happen. But yeah, man, like this movie, like I know I was coming in hard like earlier, and like I don't hate it and I don't dislike it, and it's definitely not a bad movie. It's just a movie that I will probably only ever watch once, well, twice now for the podcast. Because there are certain movies that fall under this category. You know, while they're actually technically amazing and really visceral and really like full on and really intense, you can only just kind of watch them once. I have no idea how you've seen this 15 times, Matthew. Like that is mind numbing to me. Dude, okay, and like I mean, there's only two movies that come to mind that kind of fit into this category, and that is 12 Years a Slave. Right? I mean, like 12 Years a Slave is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my life, but I'll never watch it again. And the other is Hereditary.
Like, both of those brilliant comedies, by the way.
Yeah, both of them are hilarious.
Wildly hilarious.
Right, exactly. And dude, we didn't even like, talk about this. This is the first time we're talking about Nicolas Cage on the podcast. We have never covered a Nicolas Cage film. So it's kind of like interesting for us to start at this film, considering like what he's known for and like what he's a fucking crazy person.
Dude, the two, I would say the two that I thought, because there's two Nicolas Cage movies that I absolutely adore. And I was like, we definitely would have seen, I would have picked Gone in 60 Seconds at some point. Because I fucking love Gone. I unabashedly love that movie. And I know it's the same guy who did Swordfish or whatever, but it's Chi McBride and Robert Duvall. And it's such a fucking really, really good cast. And Lord of War. I always really, really liked Lord of War. And it's underrated, man. But it's like right before he started doing all the weird shit and stuff. But no, sorry to interrupt. Those were just the two that I was like, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't have expected this to be, of all the cagiest, but this is like cagiest at his cagiest. You know what I mean? This is like this is so perfect for it.
This movie, what Keanu Reeves was to The Matrix, Nicolas Cage is to Mandy. Like, he is just built for this role. Like, he's just born to be this guy. Like, this is like his perfect range of like to have somebody unhinged and impassioned and angry, but also like can pull off like tender and like caring. Like, he's got it, man. Like, as crazy as Nicolas Cage is, because make no mistake, he's fucking crazy. Okay. Like, he's a crazy person, but he is goddamn talented. Like, he's a good actor. And the other movie I always recommend, especially if people haven't seen it and they don't really know much about Nicolas Cage outside of like, isn't that the guy from the National Treasure movies and the Head on Fire Skull guy movie? I'm like, go watch Raising Arizona by the Coen brothers. It's an excellent movie, dude. Bad Lieutenant 2 is also, I mean, that's his dark shit for sure. But Raising Arizona is fucking brilliant. It's still one of my favorite Coen brothers movies. And he's so charming and funny in that movie. Like, it's a good reminder of what Nicolas Cage is capable of. But this is, dude, like, I mean, you guys already know, like, this has leapt up very high in my ranking of not just Nicolas Cage movies, but movies in general. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, man, like, I mean, Nicolas Cage, I feel like there's two types of Nicolas Cage films, right? There's the schlock, like, direct-to-DVD bullshit that he stars in to pay off his taxes. Like, there's that shit.
It's lit. That's the truth.
Dude, that is the truth. And then there's also these projects that he decides to take on with directors who know what he's capable of and use him in an interesting way. And that's Mandy. Right, I mean, like that 100% is Mandy, I think, to me. But yeah, man, like Nicolas Cage has always been around for me. Like, I mean, Con Air was a staple when we were kids, man. Like, me and my brother, and The Rock, obviously, Michael Bay's The Rock.
Hell yeah.
those were things, man. Like, I mean, he's got a voice. I mean, like, he's got a fucking voice. He's got an accent, and like, he's got these long flowing hair, and it's just like, what is this? What am I watching here? But Mandy, all right, man. Like this was tough to watch. First time I watched it, not even gonna lie, fell asleep.
I was just about to ask you, like, what from your point of view, Zoe, because you seem, to be honest, the most exhausted by this movie. And so I'm like, at first I was like, was it just because it's just so insane and over the top and violent? But no, it sounds like it bored you to death.
No, it was just, and like, I appreciate, there's one word that I can probably use for this movie, and that is abstract. Like, this movie is so insanely abstract, and it doesn't, the way it presents things is so, initially confusing, and the dialogue is so riddle-like. Like, it's so, I mean, like, especially from Jeremiah Sand, like, that is all, he speaks in riddles, right? Like, he basically, like, I mean, like, I know he speaks like a preacher, like a priest, but I feel like it goes like one step beyond that, and it's just so interpretive. And like, yeah, I mean, like, I knew what I was kind of getting myself into because, co-host of the podcast, Matt Vella, watched it when this movie came out. And if you know Matt Vella loves Nicolas Cage, and he told me that this movie is like a film of two halves, right? Like, you've got the first kind of like quieter half, and then you've got the second kind of insane vengeance half of it all. And he ended up liking the second half of it, but I think I actually have to disagree. I actually think the first half of this movie is much more interesting than the second half. I don't know why. I think I'm kind of like, now that I'm reading more and more about it, I'm definitely kind of like getting a little bit more interested and keen. I wish this podcast was delayed another 5 times over so I can have more time to like look into what the fuck this movie is about.
Oh, it's not too late, baby. I can have a problem right now. Oh, whoops, we got to do it next week. Sorry.
All right, guys, we'll see you next episode. Yeah. But yeah, I like, and dude, this film it just visually looks incredible, and it sounds incredible. I don't want to go past Johan Johansson. Man, that guy. I'm not wrong, right? It's Johan Johansson. That's the composer. Yeah. Dude, Sicario. That's all I'm gonna say. Fucking Sicario, man. Like,
and
he passed away. And Arrival, yeah, big Villeneuve guy. But he passed away like at the start of last year, I think. And
this was his final score. This movie, yeah.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, and it's just it's tragic because he had so much talent, So yeah, man, visually this movie is just astounding. This film might actually have one of the most visually incredible sequences I've ever seen in my life. Like, that's not hyperbole or anything like that, or exaggeration. I'll get to it when I get to it, but man, this thing, I'm not even gonna call it a movie. I'm not gonna call it a film. It's a thing. Like, it's just.
I actually kind of agree with that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's some kind of like weird experience, and by the end of it, I left unfulfilled. Even the second time around, I left unfulfilled. But I do want to search for answers, if that makes sense. Like, I want to know what the fuck I just saw.
You're like a guy who gets abducted by aliens and kind of denies it, but deep down wants to know. Like, he's like, the truth is out there.
No, dude, this is how I feel. I got abducted by aliens, and then I woke up in my own bed and my asshole was hurting, and I was like, why is my asshole hurting? Did I get probed or something? And it's just like, and then that's when I start down the alien rabbit hole. Like, I was just like, this is weird.
Oh, so you started with your asshole hurting. You're like, it must have been aliens and nothing else.
Yeah, that's it, dude. That's the most logical conclusion. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's really my thoughts on it. I know it's not really thoughts. It's kind of like, it's kind of questions. And like, Matt, I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about this movie, because I need answers, dude. I just need answers.
It's funny. I'm somebody who I normally am very much when it comes to like criticism of anything like books or movies. And to a lot of people fucking hate this, to be honest, but I'm like, I like the ambiguity, and I'm always the one of like, yeah, there isn't really an answer. Oh, well, that's still interesting. I don't care. This is actually one of the few times where I'm like, yeah, I actually feel like I have answers. Like, I feel like I have direct, like, here's why this happened. Here's what that means. Like, this is,
it's funny you say that, man. It's funny you say that, because I was literally about to like articulate it like that, but I had no idea how to articulate that kind of like thing. Like I mean, like, with Nolan films, with even like Sicario, with like Arrival, I like ambiguity. I like movies that don't give me all the answers, but give me the clues and hints, and like things that are left up to interpretation. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like, did Brad Pitt kill his wife? I don't need to know, but give me clues. Whereas in this, I'm just like, man, there is just so much ambiguity here. I just want to be given hints as to what might be happening,
Yeah. No, I get that, because this is, the only accurate word in my mind is it's an enigmatic movie. Like it really is about,
right.
And this is one of the few movies in my opinion that it's more an experience than it is like, okay,
God damn it, you. Fuck, that was what I was going to say.
Stealing your thunder. That's what happens when I come in as a guest, baby. But no, like it is a movie that you kind of almost have to like relax and let it kind of just wash over you as an experience. Right. Yes. And like, okay, like, so how does this movie make me feel? Right. Because I really do mean it in the very literal sense of like, this is a movie about emotions. Like emotions are practically characters in this. Like the whole thing is pretty metaphorical. And I don't, in my mind at least, have any like characters attached specifically to emotions except for Red. But actually, I'll start right there. One of the biggest clues, and it's very obvious. Once I say it, you're gonna be like, holy shit, how did I not think about that? One of the most obvious clues in this movie that the entire movie is about color is what's Nicolas Cage's character's name? Red. Like that's his fucking name. And anger in this movie is the color red. Like that is what that, when you see the color red in this movie, it is a signal of, or like a foreshadowing of, or an announcement of, you're now seeing anger. Like this is anger that you're looking at. And every single color on screen has a very like direct correlation to a specific emotion. No, it sounds weird, but like what makes me harp on this so much is that I noticed, every now and then I think that I'm thinking about this more and more often these days of like the use of color and lighting in movies. And there are times where it's like, you can tell the cinematographer or whoever, the lighting person, they're using color because it looks cool. Like it just looks cool in the scene. It highlights a character's face. And you're like, there's not really a meaning to it. It just looks good here. But this is a movie where every single color has a meaning, and the amount of color on screen, which colors are on screen, which combination of colors on screen, they all actually have, there's like a language to it. And it sounds odd, but what I noticed about it as I kept watching it, and I watch it again, it's consistent. Like the colors are used very consistently. Red is always representative of anger. It's never anything else. It's never muddied. Like red always means anger. Blue in this movie always means sadness. And I can't wait to start getting into some specific scenes with you guys. So it's weird to talk about in the abstract, but when I have examples to talk about and be like, this color in this scene, the way they're doing this, you'll start to see what I mean. And I'm really growing these days to appreciate when filmmakers use aesthetic choices to mean something, where it's like the whole meaning of this movie is tied up in its aesthetics. This movie literally can't look different from how it is, or the meaning would look different. Like you couldn't make different visual choices because that would literally change the meaning of the story. And I think that's fascinating. And that's part of why I'm just like, I'm obsessed with this movie and noodling with it like a fucking Rubik's Cube. I'm just like, ooh, like, how does it work? I want to look at all the pieces. Like, how does it fucking work? I love it. I'm obsessed. I know I'm a fucking dork about it, but
No, dude, I love that kind of shit, man. Like I remember, throwing myself back to like 12th grade when we did Blade Runner in English class, right? I mean, like, they're literally showing us the use of lighting, and basically, I remember the blinds over what's her name, Rachel's face, and like how that was supposed to mean something too, and it just like it all just kind of like throws me back. So that's my second last point before I throw it to Colin for his thoughts. But my last point on this is, have you ever just like fallen asleep in a movie and woken up and just some Jesus looking dude is like standing there with his cock out? Because that is a weird experience, man. That's a weird thing to wake up to.
You just fall fitfully asleep while watching this movie, and you wake up and you're just like, oh, Daddy, why? What, Daddy? Where am I?
Why is this happening?
my ass still hurts, but my hand is down my pants. I don't know. It's weird.
That's strange to me.
I'm into it, but I hate it, but I love it.
Well, yeah. So Mandy, oh Mandy, well you came and you gave.
By the way, sorry, we didn't say it. Colin, you said this is the first time you've seen this movie. This is the first for both of us. Like we've never had a guest kind of come in and like, you know, put forward a movie that we both have never seen before. But we both kind of like were very curious about this movie.
Right, yeah, 100%. I remember seeing it and hearing good things about it, and I was like, yeah, I know Nicolas Cage did like that Mandy movie, and that he did something called like Mom and Dad that somebody said that actually wasn't half bad, and like I think he's doing like lower scale stuff, but he's kind of making better choices than like his contemporaries, you know, like the other people around him. Like I feel like John Travolta trying to do something like The Fanatic, and he's like, all right, so he did he's like so Nicolas Cage did this movie, I'll do this one, and we'll both have like we'll have comebacks. It's like, no, like that ship has sailed. Like it's weird. Nick Cage went through a phase of like
just fucking slaps, dude. Come on.
Like it's weird with Nick Cage because it's like he was, and what's really crazy is he's Francis Ford Coppola's like nephew.
Yeah.
And apparently he just he was like, I don't want that name to like carry me places. I was like, cool, good for you, dude. But it's interesting, like he was good, and then it's kind of like, oh, this fucking dude. But now it's kind of turning back, where it's like, cool, you're doing, you know, you're not doing Face Off anymore. You know, you're not doing National Treasure. Like there are still some projects like that he does just to fucking pay bills, because fiscally he's an idiot. But the cool thing is just the choices that he's making. I feel like are different from people that like that were popular in the same time he was, and now they've gotten older. And I like that. I was like, that's cool. He does kind of strike me as just a enigma of a human being. I'm like, man, I just love to sit down and smoke a joint with that dude and be like, hey, you are one interesting fucking guy. But
dude, he might bite your face off.
Right. Well, and I was listening to like some of the I was listening to some of the production stuff, and it was like it was the director and Kevin Smith and oh God, Linus Roach, who plays Jeremiah, and it was Nick Cage, and Nick Cage was like, yeah, it was like when they lit the whole walls on fire at the end, it was actually, you know, kind of comforting, and it was like him walking through fire, and she's like, you're fucking weird, dude. But
that's a good Nick Cage, by the way.
It's okay. It's not my bad. I've got to steal the Declaration of Independence.
That's not bad, man. That's actually not bad.
But I mean, my fucking go-to Nick Cage thing is Gone in 60 Seconds. I just drive. I'm like, oh, that's so fucking good. I love Gone in 60 Seconds. But this whole movie feels like, I don't know. It definitely feels like a bad acid trip, but also mixed with like heavy metal album covers and like Mad Max, and there's so much stuff that and I heard, you know, Cosmatos saying like, you know, he's like, there's something around the time, because I think this is set in 83, and he was like, with, you know, in 83, you know, there's he's like, I just had this overall feeling about 80s and like the kind of the Technicolor stuff that was going away, and because this definitely feels like the something like Suspiria, you know, like something like that. These real vibrant, almost like Italian filmmaking kind of film. Because I think is he Italian? I think
Greek. I think so.
Greek.
You know,
there
it's
you
all
go.
the same.
Yeah,
you know?
fuck it. They're not Anglo-Saxons. No,
It's a lot of hair.
but, yeah. But you know, there's something about the movie that it's interesting, it being set in the 80s and the whole kind of Technicolor feel of it. Like this whole movie feels like that weird, like vibrant ass colored scene in Willy Wonka, but it went on for like 2 hours. And I do enjoy it. I don't have a single criticism of anybody in the cast. There's not any bit of this casting that I was like, that's not, nah, you know, it just never. I think they have an incredible cast behind this movie. And what I like about a movie like this is, even though, you know, obviously the director has his own interpretation, and Matt obviously has one, and Zoheb doesn't fucking know what's going on. And like, I might have a different kind of interpretation of this. It just leaves so much open to where, like, is there something definitive? Like, probably, but like, is it imperative that I know that? Like, can I form my own decisions and stuff? And I like a movie like that. I like a movie that it's not just, you know, you went and killed these people and that's it. This isn't like Death Wish, or something like that. Like, even though at the core plot wise, it's a revenge film, exactly like what Matt said, this thing is an experience like unto itself.
Right.
Because,
you can feel there's more to it than just a straight up vengeance film, right?
Right. Exactly. And it's, to me, it's interesting, all the color changes and stuff that Matt was talking about, because I had the movie playing right now, and as he was talking about it, I was like, okay, yeah, that's actually kind of starting to make sense. Like, I was just like skipping through scenes. It's like, okay, this actually kind of, makes a lot of sense. But I think there is something really interesting about like the whole thing with the 80s-ness of it, without being something like Stranger Things or It Follows or something. But in the same vein, it kind of like does remind me of It Follows in a strange way, just because when it's not all Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, it has that awesome like early 80s kind of feel, but it doesn't. I don't know. It's weird. It's like it's an 80s movie, but it doesn't feel like an 80s movie. And I don't know how to quite put my finger on it, but it's not the best way to describe it, but that's as close as I can get. And I think that there's something that we get used to as 80s films, like Stranger Things and, It Follows, or Summer of '84, like stuff like that, or like E.T. But like to think of something like this being set in the 80s, it almost feels kind of timeless at the same time, because there's not a whole lot of like, it's not, I don't know, like there's that one point where they have Reagan on the radio, I think, but there's not like, there's not people walking by dressed up as Michael Jackson and David Bowie and shit. It's subtle. So it kind of feels timeless in that way. And I really, really enjoyed that about it. And I thought it was really interesting. And the whole, God, there's so many like there's so much Christian imagery like that reflects to literally with Red getting stabbed in the side with the spear. I was like, dude, come on. And I was like, that's like, Jesus Christ, literally. I know that shit. But all in all, I enjoyed it. I really like the cast. The soundtrack is really, really cool. I just sat down and kind of listened to it one day, walking my dog, and I was like, this is fucking interesting. And why I keep coming back to like the 80s metal stuff is even when, he's forging the axe and Mandy pops up on the screen and starts spreading like vines. It's like, dude, that looks like, my friend Caleb is big into those kind of bands. That looks like the front t-shirt he would have for some band, Twisted Pig Fetal Abortion, some band like that. Like, and all these metal bands that you listen to, that's the fucking names that they have. It's just crazy shit, and that kind of logo. So it keeps making me come back to like this 80s metal like kind of thing. But this is the first time that I'm struggling to remember her name. The girl that actually Andrea Riseborough.
Yeah.
I've never seen her in shit besides this.
I can tell you what she's in, like currently in theaters right now. One of the worst movies I've ever seen, The Grudge.
Oh no,
really?
It's
the new one.
It's bad.
That's sad.
It's bad.
That sucks. I was hoping that would be decent, but I guess I'll save my money and go see Cats. But
yeah.
But no, I really enjoyed this a lot. Like Matt said, is definitely an experience, and I think there's something. I also think there's something really interesting to be said about the grief process in it. And I heard some interview with Panos Cosmatos where he was like, both my parents died before this movie came out, and I think he was kind of reflecting on that. And there's something really interesting about the grief in it, because like we've all kind of said, it has nothing to do with like the revenge film kind of aspect of it. Like if you come in looking for that, you'll find it 2 hours later, I guess. It's pretty cool, and there's some cool actiony stuff if you go in at like a surface level. But there's so many, I don't know, I feel like there's so many different tunnels and there's so many different avenues to go down with this movie, but there's never like a right place to end up at. And I really enjoy that. It's just kind of like it allows you to interpret stuff. I've read stuff where people thought Mandy was like mother nature, and Red was like the god of war, and he's like a logger and he's chopping down the trees, and that signifies this. And I was like, man, some people come up with some crazy shit on Reddit.
That's great
all
as
in
fuck,
all,
by the way.
Yeah. All in all, I really did enjoy it, and it's definitely an experience. And like I said, I liken it to movies like A Clockwork Orange, or Requiem for a Dream, or something like Jacob's Ladder, stuff that I only need to watch every once in a while, because it is like it does its job though. That's the thing, is even if you don't especially like it, like it's so surreal and it's so like watching this, and then I look over at like my beige wall in my apartment, I was like, good God, like it's like my life looks so bland after watching this movie. I was like, if my life were a sandwich, like an ice cream sandwich, it would be fucking vanilla. I was like, this is so plain with like the colors and shit. Did any of you guys catch like the Batman Begins connection with this?
No, I did not.
So the chemist is Joe Chill. He's the guy who shoots.
Oh, cool.
He's the guy who gets shot at the beginning of it. Then Jeremiah Sand is Bruce Wayne's dad in Batman Begins.
Oh, I thought
and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Damn, that's weird.
I always, when I first started watching it, I thought he was like, have you guys watched The Boys on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
I haven't finished it. It seems really good though.
Well, the woman that's in charge of the company, and she's always the one talking to Homelander. I was like, is Jeremiah Sand like her brother or something? I was like, they look so similar, especially when they're doing like the Russian roulette scene and shit. But anyways, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm excited to talk about it, and I think there's a lot of meat on the bone. So why don't we just fucking jump right in? If that's all right with you guys. You guys got anything else you want to say before we hit the road?
I'm ready to die.
Yeah, man, I'm good. Let's get into it.
Excellent.
Give me some answers, Matthew.
All right. So the movie means this. No, okay. It's gonna take more than that.
The thing at the beginning, this whole "when I die, bury me deep," blah 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 blah. Like, did you guys like read about this at all? Did you know what this is from?
No,
actually,
that's
quote.
Yeah.
It's a guy, Douglas Roberts, who was being executed in some glorious southern state, Texas or Louisiana or something like that. But that was his final, his final shit that he said before they killed him. And I was like, holy shit, like that's fucking crazy. It's an interesting, again, the rock and roll, like I don't know, there's something about that.
It's so metal. I have made several friends of mine watch this movie who are big into metal, because I'm just like, dude, have you ever seen the movie Heavy Metal? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, this movie is far more metal than Heavy Metal. It's the most metal movie ever fucking made.
Yeah, I've never seen Heavy Metal, and I fucking heard. I've heard you guys always talk about it. I'm like, I don't even know if I even have seen what that means. Like a trailer or a screenshot or something. Like I have no idea.
Douglas Roberts, convicted of kidnapping, robbery, and murder in Texas, and executed on April 20, 2005. That's where the quote comes from.
Damn.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Jumping right in, we kind of open on these shots of the forest as our credits roll by. Like I said, this all feels very Suspiria to me, and it also, in a weird way, it feels kind of like Django a little bit. There's something about that 70s kind of Italian, I don't know, there's something about it that gave me like a Django kind of feel. But it's interesting because when you see these first shots, you see kind of how dull everything is, especially of what's to come. Like everything's just like, at first I was like, oh god, I knew I should have rendered the high def and not the standard, and I was like, no, I think it just kind of looks like that. Like it's just very, I don't know, like flat and kind of bland looking.
100%, dude. Yeah.
Well, and what do you like? Is that just setting the scene of like, this is the normal world? Like, wait till we're gonna get into the rest of this shit. Like, wait till the colors really start to pop. Like, what was you guys' like interpretation of that?
Take it away, Zoeb. Unless you want answers.
Both you guys. I have like zero. No, I'm kidding. I think you're on the money there, Colin. Like it seems like this is kind of like his everyday life. This is kind of like what he's doing. And like, you know, he just ends up like leaving in the helicopter. Like like I think the colors, like you said, Matthew, like it's supposed to be indicative of his everyday life. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's supposed to be the norm. And then, like, once we get the thematics of anger and sadness, that's when the colors start to come in and becomes more ethereal. That's what I got from it, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think one of the biggest things it takes, dude, like, I swear to you, like, I didn't even think of or notice any of this shit until like 5 or 6 fucking viewings in on this movie. But thinking in terms of color, a big part of it, too, I think, is contrast. And when you take this opening moment, when you see, you know, Red out in the forest with his black and white t-shirt, you know, very washed out, grayish, greenish landscape, and then he drives home and it's dark, and then we kind of fade into his home, and then we see Mandy for the first time. The movie becomes so much more colorful. Like it becomes vivid and it becomes clear. And one thing I've noticed about the early part of the movie, the first 30 minutes or so, and especially any of the scenes that Mandy's directly in, and it's like about her, or a conversation between her and Red, the colors blend. It's all like, if you'll notice the second half of the movie is super stark. Like there are times on screen where it's like the only colors on screen are black and red, and that's it. And they're extremely saturated. They're extremely like almost too vivid and harsh. And in the first part of the movie, especially, when they're at home and they're quiet and they're happy, the colors are like clear and lush and they blend together. Like all of those, the most intimate scenes in the movie that, one we have coming up here pretty soon when they're like laying in bed together and talking, the colors literally, like the light is just like waving through like blue and orange and green and red and yellow. And it's like there's like this beautiful like rainbow is like playing out over them as they're like talking and connecting. And I think in a lot of ways that really indicates that she is, Mandy is the single most important thing in the world to Red. Like she's the light of his fucking life. Like when he's at work, when he's out in the world cutting down trees like a big old lumberjack, man, it's washed out and it's gray and it's boring. And he comes home and it's like vivid and alive. And like you really kind of get the sense of like, oh, she's the thing he lives for.
Well, when they start,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like when they start talking here about the planets and the stars, and then they talk about Galactus from the Marvel comics, like that. This is this when the colors just kind of like start to come in, because what they're actually talking about, the subject matter of it all, is kind of like really. I don't want to use the word again, but ethereal. Like it's kind of like out there and very unspecific. And it's just kind of like, we're in a different kind of like fantasy land in terms of like what they're talking about. I don't know. Like I feel like the subject matter that they're talking about is complementary to the color. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where it is sort of like ethereal and weird. But then when you stop and think about what he says, he actually gives up a lot about himself, because he changes his mind from his favorite planet being Saturn to just saying, yeah, I'm Galactus. He eats planets. And she kind of laughs at it. But you're like, that is kind of his energy in the second half of the movie. He's just the consumer destroyer of all. Like it kind of like he's telling the truth about himself in a weird, like enigmatic way.
Well, especially at the end, he's like, I'm your god now. And I'm like, holy shit.
Fuck, Galactus.
But yeah, and fucking produced by Elijah Wood. That was random.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Strange. And I was like, surely. Yeah. And I was like, surely not. And I was like, actually, surely, that probably is.
Slight little addition. This is a second 2018 film to mention Galactus. The other one is Vice, the one with Dick Cheney. And they use it to describe the Cheney administration, the eater of worlds.
Well, Nicolas Cage was contractually obligated to mention Marvel Comics because he was in Ghost Rider. It's all connected.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, we're kind of introduced to this world. The Shadow Mountains, 1983 AD. We're introduced to Mandy. I think, is she just straight fucking ripping a bowl or like the first time you see her? Oh, that's fucking good for you. But yeah, and we kind of get all this imagery that's letting us know she's drawing these really, and what's interesting is what she's drawn. She's drawn animals and she's drawn women like nude and stuff. And I think there's something interesting about that. Like when you think of seeing animals and seeing that, it makes me think of like almost creation, like Adam and Eve kind of thing. Like you think of a naked woman in a garden like type shit, and it comes with like I don't know, it's kind of like this Mother Earth kind of thing that seeped into my head. And I was like, that's interesting, because she's always drawing animals and even though she's got these huge Dahmer glasses and this crazy scar and a Motley Crue t-shirt, she's drawing like the most like Bob Ross outdoors type shit ever, And I like that. I think it's interesting seeing right off the bat that she's an artist. And
it's funny you mentioned that, because this movie reminded me very much of Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it not in terms of like color, but in terms of like how the entire movie serves as like an entire like a massive metaphor. Like all the characters are just totally metaphorical. Like this is not a point A to B story. It's literally, we're going to like physically characterize these characters as symbols of what's in the Bible, essentially.
Right, it's like they're not supposed to be thought of as people anymore. Like they are symbols.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, what I dig is, when we first come up and we're and they seem so opposite. You have this big lumberjacky stoic kind of guy, and you've got this girl hitting a bowl and fucking drawing the shit, and it's like, wow, these two kind of seem like they would be worlds apart. But it's not. I like when he comes home, and there is kind of the joke. I love the humor in this shit as well. He's like, I am Eric Estrada, who Eric Estrada from Chips. It's like, that's fucking funny. I was like, it's a dumb joke, but it's fucking funny. But what's interesting is like they laugh and you can see them enjoying themselves, but there's always like, I don't know, why do you live out here? What's with the scar on your face? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I keep thinking, like, what happened between you or to you both, I guess.
Well, I was like, is this a fairy tale? Like, it feels like a fairy tale. Like, just these three out there, like, kind of like alone. And like, this is kind of when the comparisons to Mother came in. Like, I was like, oh, okay, hold on. Is this movie like a symbol or a metaphor for being like a fucked up fairy tale?
Dude, I wonder how much that house would fucking cost. Like by today's standard, like, dude, that house, like I've been like house hunting and shit, like looking around at houses and stuff lately. And I'm like, oh man, it's got some bay windows and blah, blah, blah. But I fucking love the house, dude. I really do. And I was except for the whole like glass cage that they sleep in. Fuck that shit. Like no goddamn
That's how the
way.
Colts know where you sleep.
Oh yeah, dude, watching that, I was just so like, I'm sure there's some kind of meaning behind it, but as I was watching, I was like, dude, fuck, I just wake up in the middle of the night and just see somebody staring at you like, oh God, I just kill myself. But I like when he comes in, she's talking about drawing the jungle temple, which kind of made me think of the church at the end, actually. This temple in the middle of the forest or jungle or whatever. It kind of made me think of, is it foreshadowing to the end, like a jungle temple? I was like, that's interesting. That's a very specific kind of thing. And I was like, forest church, jungle temple, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, we can tell that there's love between them, but they also have this really kind of, definitely a dark history, and I'm glad we don't need to know. We feel it. We don't need to know what happened. We don't need a flashback to, Red coming home drunk and chasing around the house and she got hit by a bus or whatever the fuck happened. But something has happened between them, and they lie in bed late at night. They're talking about their favorite planet. Like you said, Matt, the colors are kind of coming in, and we can see at first it's this blue, and I'm more and more I'm subscribing to your theory, just the blue of like, it feels like they're there, but they haven't started to quite. Once they start talking, that's where the color starts bleeding in,
right?
And that's where things really start to kind of mix up. But it's interesting trying to talk about a movie like this because I could say, hey, he goes to the store, he buys a pack of cigarettes, a falcon picks him up, he gets dropped out of the sky, he lands in a cloud, But this is just like, how do you describe the imagery? It's like, how do you talk about that? And it's interesting. And that's what I like about a movie like this, because it is a challenge. It's not something like what we would normally cover, but at the same time, it kind of, as a podcaster, kind of makes you like, well, how would you transcribe that like verbally? Like, how would you describe this? Right. And what do these things mean to you? And what is the interpretation of it? Even so much as like when they're first, I think after they sit there and they talk, and I don't know if they're camping outside or what, but you see Red on the other side of the flames looking at her as she comes out of the water. And I'm like, see, I see that as foreshadowing. She's going to, there's a fire. You can say like, oh, well, there's a fire between the two of them, and that means conflict, something will happen. But seeing her, and you don't really see the flames on his face, but when it cuts to her, she's like almost engulfed in them by the end. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Man, her eyes, man, they're just fucking David Bowie shit she's got going on. It just kind of wakes me out.
She's got sharp eyes, dude.
But what did you, I thought this was an important scene of her coming up out of the water, and we see him kind of stop. And what did you guys take away from this scene? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, Matt. I was just about to say, like, I agree with you again, Colin. Like, it seems like, it seems uneasy. Like, it seems like that maybe there's some danger lurking, like ahead of them, So like, not everything is like, all cutesy, whatever. Like, let's talk about the stars and planets and, Marvel Comics, whatever. It seems like there's going to be some shit that's about to go down. That's how I wrote this scene.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with that. It's like on my first couple of viewings, I was like, oh, that's just like a scene of foreshadowing that she will die in flames. But over time, it's kind of changed to like, and back when we covered it over on Lost Drive-In, Dean and I, like, we talked about some of like, it's important to always remember. It's funny what the things that this movie makes you lose sight of that are actually kind of obvious. Like you talk about this movie and everybody talks about Nicolas Cage and the over the top action and his performance, and it's insane. But it kind of, you almost start to forget that the movie's name is Mandy. Like, right. And it's obviously she's not the main character. She dies, a little before halfway through, but she has a presence over like everything. And it's the reason why Red is the way he is. And I think that like that scene of her coming out of the water and staring at him through the fire is like this really cool scene of there's like a doom about her, like a sadness about her that even Red can't understand. Like he senses it, but he doesn't know what to do with it. You don't know how to address it. You're like, she's just kind of like this born sad, quietly, mysteriously sad woman, and you'll never quite understand her. And that's just kind of it. Like she is the true enigma of the story. And I think what really seals the fact of her being, a mystery that by definition can never be answered is the fact that she dies. Like I think that's part of what, and I'm jumping ahead here, but like, I think as the movie goes past the halfway point and Mandy is dead, that's a big part of what spurs Red's anger is that like for him, he obviously loved her a ton, but also he was trying to figure her out and understand her. And now he'll never get the chance to, like she's gone. And she was always a mystery to him. And I think that's a big part of her character, that she's a character that like there's something deeply sad in her. Like a great scene too is another conversation they're having. And this is, coming pretty soon from where we're at right now, where Red and her are sitting on the couch and the camera's like slowly just zooming in on her talking. And Red's face is kind of like obscured in shadow, but Mandy is completely blue. Like the whole scene is blue. And she tells that story of her father coming over, or her stepfather, I think maybe, coming over with a bag of little baby birds and getting her and the neighborhood kids to try and kill them. And she describes like, I just ran away, but she's like, it's probably one of the first, I get the sense at least, that it's one of the first and few times that she's been that vulnerable with him, because he's never heard this story before. He was like, what? Like, what you did what? And he's surprised by it. Like, I kind of get the feeling Mandy doesn't open up like this. Like that's a rare thing.
Right. And she seems uncomfortable as she's telling it.
Yes,
like that's what I kept saying. Just there's so much tension in the air, and she's like, I would say, a melancholy prince. Like there's something about it where it's like, you're just this always kind of enigma, just this weird, kinky, hot, what are you kind of shit. But no, I agree with all that she is kind of like the, Red. We understand Red's motivations, and we understand, the children's motivations, but it's like, man, what does Mandy want? Like she just has this total, like, I don't know, dark but gentle kind of free spirit about her.
Right.
That I really like.
Perfect way of putting it, dude. I really like that. Dark.
Yeah,
gentle,
I thought so too.
Spirit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. No, yeah,
patented.
Yeah, I win podcast. No, but I mean, we're pretty much right there. We're at the scene where, there's images of them at the lake. The one thing that I did want to say is, what the fuck is up with the scene of the baby deer? You know what? I'm throwing in the okay, because
I agree. I agree with Zoe on that one.
I feel like I sat here and like debated somebody for like an hour, and they bring up some shit that I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. I agree with you. Fuck it. I don't care. Like whatever it is. I just kind of gave up, and I was like, I guess so. The loss of innocence, and there's something interesting where she just sheds like the one tear, and obviously I was like, oh, so well, she's vegan, like she's an animal lover.
Bambi's her favorite movie, dude. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
if you take it back to back with literally like the next scene, right? Like which is the scene where you guys were just talking about, where she's peer pressured into killing the starling. Like I mean, like those two scenes work hand in hand, right? I mean,
totally.
like there's the death of innocence with the fawn, and then there's also like my own innocence was nearly killed through this experience.
It's a great, I like that. That's a great pull.
Yep, that is good.
See, I'm smart.
Got to put that law degree to work.
Movie. We're getting there.
You got to put that fucking law degree to work somehow.
Fucking 7 years of uni, bitch.
But yeah, I mean, we're pretty much here. This is where Red said that he was having a nightmare, but he can't remember what it was. And this is where she starts talking about the starlings. All this in one take, by the way. Love that. Fucking love it.
So
it's
good.
great. Doesn't break. That's why the tension is so palpable, and it doesn't break, and it doesn't give us a chance to blink in the movie. And then like there's something so I hate movies where like I was sitting there with Lindsay and I was like, we're watching this. This is a movie where every 5 seconds they will have to cut to something. And we'd be like, one, two, three, one, two. And it was like, it wouldn't even last 5 seconds half the time. I'm like, that's what I like about this movie. It gives it room to breathe. It's got patience. And I like movies that, you know, even if I don't really at the end of the day don't even know what this fucking movie is about, maybe I have a totally different interpretation than the director, or maybe I might never watch this movie again, or maybe watch it in 10 years. I still like it because it is an original film, and it is something that is taking a risk, and it's being brave, and it's being original, and it's refreshing. And that's what I really liked. I was like, that's interesting. And it's like, it's not just like, you know, like Train to Busan. We were talking about that off air. Fucking love Train to Busan. It was great. And I watched it and I really enjoyed it. And it was somewhat refreshing. But something like this is just like, I don't know. It's like mind melding. And I was like, and that's what I found so interesting
like
about it and appreciated.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like, I had to watch some really funny shit after I watched this movie. So I was like, I was like, I need a minute. Like today was such a nice day and it was pretty outside, and I walked my dog for like 3 miles, and I fucking was reading Stephen King The Stand and did a bunch of shit in my car, and I was like, all right, I gotta go inside to talk about this fucking thing. Like
this fucking bummer. Thanks, Matthew, you piece of shit.
This piece of glass in my stool. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I enjoyed it. But I like that that the Mandy's dad, he kind of signifies the cult who kill innocent things that consume. Like there's something about when you look at the cult are like, you're just pigs and you're mindless and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of feel like that's the same thing that Mandy's dad would be saying about these starlings. They're a nuisance, even though they don't bother you at all, but you have this ego, the superiority complex to them. And I thought that was interesting in a way of like my dad was telling me, he was growing up as a kid, they would do that shit. Like your dog would have puppies and you wanted to get rid of them. They'd throw the puppies in a sack, tie it up, and throw it in a fucking river. And it was like, what the fuck?
I know.
Like, that's crazy. I mean, Matt and I are both from the South. So, I mean, fucking that shit.
All time.
What is happening?
What? Right. Zohab's over there like, what? like, but no, there's something interesting about me, and it also is, to me, Mandy rejecting the call to kill the starlings is her rejecting Jeremiah as well. I think there's something about that where she denies both of those, and it's such a character trait for her, because when I was watching this, my first impression of her were like, holy shit, they're gonna abduct her and make her a member, and maybe she's gonna have some kind of like, I don't want to say Stockholm syndrome, but like maybe she becomes a part of this group and something is going on and blah, blah, blah. I didn't expect her to die so soon. I was like, holy shit. Like when it happened, I was like, I didn't think that was going to happen. I honestly, if you put a gun to my head, I would have thought that like Mandy would become some kind of god or something like that. I was like, maybe they worship her. Like what the fuck is going on? But no, I really dig the scene of her talking about the starlings and stuff. And like you said, Matt, her opening up, and this seems like it doesn't really happen all of that much. And again, there's just so much mystery around her when you add something like a scar and the weird kind of look in her eye, and you're like, what happened? Immediately. It's so good. It's great. Such a great visual kind of like, that's interesting. I like the shit that she's reading, the book. Like I wrote this down actually. And it's not a real book, by the way. I looked it up. I was like, dude, what is that? I kind of want to check that out. That sounds like some Tolkien shit. That sounds cool. But what is it? Under the crimson primordial sky, surrounded by jagged rocks of the ancient volcanic mountain, the wretched warlock reached into the dark embrace of a fissure until his hand touched a smooth, glassy surface cold as ice. His fist closed around the serpent's eye. Slowly he withdrew it and held it before him. In fading light of the blood-red sun, it glowed from within a ghostly emerald light, strange and eternal. I was like, wow, that's fucking awesome, dude. It's like, that's from a fake book. I want to read that shit. That sounds great. But it did kind of make me think of like the wretched warlock reached into the dark embrace until his hand touched this. And I was like, I feel like that's Nicolas Cage kind of reaching into himself to find the thing that he needs to, like, once he snaps, like, and there's something interesting about, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but there's something interesting about seeing Nick Cage, his descent into this. And this is not a good example, but there's a Kevin Bacon movie called Death Sentence. It's not great.
Oh, dude.
It's,
That's James Wan, baby.
oh, is it real? I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's good. I enjoyed it, and it's probably been 10 years since I've seen it. It is your typical, like, revenge, death wish kind of thing. But at the end of it, spoilers, Kevin Bacon is like, has his head shaved and kind of dresses like the guy.
I have seen this. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And the guy remarks to him, he's like, you kind of look like us now. And at the end, I was like, dude, Red looks like he could fit right in line with those fucking bikers, like the black armor and the blood all over his face. And I was like, whoa. But then also the Christ imagery of him getting stabbed in the side with the spear when he gets caught, the bolt through the hand. And I was like, dude, that's Christ imagery. Like that's like him being crucified. I was like, there's something so crazy about that to me. But
just FYI,
yeah,
little mini side tangent. James Wan made that movie Death Sentence because he was just starting out and couldn't afford the rights to Death Wish. So it's literally the same thing. Like, it's Death Wish, but he's like, I'm just gonna make my own version. Fuck it.
That's fucking, because I was just like, yeah, it's just like Death Wish, and there you fucking go. So Mandy, we see her kind of reading her book, and we're introduced to the children of the New Dawn. So this guy in real life, Linus Roach, do you know he's kind of technically is like in a cult?
Wait, what? Really?
Okay, well, nobody has ever been harmed. This isn't like that shit with like the girl who was on Smallville that they were like fucking raping people and killing them or whatever the fuck was going on.
Is this like the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You? What's his name? Andrew Keegan?
I don't know who that is.
Oh, look it up, dude. Like, he started a cult and apparently like it failed. It like had something to do with crystals and shit, and it was weird.
Of course it did.
Awesome.
I couldn't find any information out about Linus Roach's thing, but like it's big enough that I think it holds several thousand members, like, I don't know, 30 to 70,000 if I remember it. But he obviously he's an English actor, and he lived in England. And then they were like, hey, we're starting a New York branch. He's like, cool, I'll move to New York and I'll be head of the New York branch. I was like, what the fuck? That's kind of crazy. But it's not, they're not like holding people against their will. I've heard it's like a lot of meditation, as long as you're not, hey, whatever happens between consenting adults of right age, I don't give a shit. That's your business. But I just thought it was interesting. And he said he pulled from that experience. That's why I even mentioned that. I didn't mean to mention it like tabloid shit, like, oh, it's going to fucking Korea. But there is something interesting about, he said that experience helped him because he's like, I met people who were very helpful with my spiritual journey, but I also met people who were Jeremiah. And he's like, and they, not to his extent, but there is something about that Jim Jones, David Koresh kind of like feel to him, Charles Manson, Heaven's Gate, like kind of shit. And he was like, there's something along my way. I met people like that and it helped to inspire it. And I was like, wow, that is kind of perfect casting. Like a guy who's kind of like in something not like this, Jesus Christ, but having that inspiration to draw from was really, it was interesting to read about, and he's open about it. He's not like, I don't want to talk about that.
I definitely get more Charles Manson than Jim Jones. I mean, like the Jim Jones stuff is very like obvious, like the religious stuff of it, but I don't know the way that he's like, oh, this is my family, blah, blah, blah. Like it seems more in line with
my favorite, like, I guess Charles Manson-esque thing about him, because in a lot of ways you don't really see him interact with his children of their dawn all that much, except for the early parts here. But when he is talking to Mandy later, where he's like talking about record executives not liking his music, and he's like, they couldn't see the profound light right in front of them, and and basically talking about speaking with God and telling them that God told me that I'm right and I get to have everything. And I'm like, this is just like a psychoanalytic breakdown of every cult leader who's ever lived. Of like, they're like, yeah, I just get to have everything. I'm the most important person in the world. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. That's what they think.
Yeah, I mean, like the one common like theme among all cult leaders is narcissism, right? Like that's a thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. That's like, I do see exactly what you said, Zoheb. Like Jeremiah feels like a hodgepodge kind of mosaic of all those guys, but the traveling like men and women in a group and you're a family, like, yes, that's fucking Manson. But this is where we see, after Mandy's reading her book, we're introduced to the children, Linus Roach and the whole gang. Jeremiah, the leader, stares at her as they drive past her on the road. I love scenes like this because, like, the second time watched around, I just kind of hit the fast forward button once, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, so this scene is normal, like, pace now. Like as I'm trying to like refresh myself going through here, because it's interesting. Scenes like this, they're long and they're drawn out. And the first time I see it, I enjoy that. But like when it's different when you're doing stuff for a podcast. Like, okay, I'm trying to refresh myself from this.
Right.
But it was interesting because it's such a long like hold on that. And
I got a quick question. Sorry,
no, you.
This like when he's driving past and she's walking and they both like lock eyes on each other. It's not really a question. It's more of an observation. This, I don't know why, in my head, this... Have you guys seen Kill Bill? You've seen... I know, Matt, you have. Colin, have you seen Kill Bill? The first... at least the first one.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah.
What is it? It's Kill Bill, right? Where it's like, like, whenever they see each other, like, the red flashes, and it's like... Yeah. That's what this reminds me of, dude. I'm just like... I don't know why, it's just in my head. There's that kind of, like, music in the background. I feel like Tarantino would have a ball with this movie, by the way.
Oh, I feel like he would love this movie.
Yeah.
And make it even bloodier if he made it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. the chainsaw fight, one of them ends up getting like sodomized by it or something.
Dude, there's a chainsaw fight in this movie.
Right?
Oh, dude.
Isn't it the most like weirdly quiet, poetic, like ethereal, strange movie that has a screaming Nicolas Cage in a chainsaw sword fight? You're like, what the fuck? Oh, I love it.
That is the most phallic thing in this movie.
Doing a line of cocaine off a piece of broken glass.
Yeah.
So metal.
So fucking good. So this is where they drive past her on the road. We kind of get this intro to Mother Marlene and Jeremiah.
Yeah.
God, he's like, please. And Lindsay and I just started laughing. I fucking couldn't help it, man. I died because it was so, but he sucked me in with that tension and he was so good. And then he just like, when he started, please, I just fucking couldn't help it, man. I started laughing my ass off.
And it's one of those, dude, he's one of those guys. And what I love about watching these quiet scenes where it's like just Jeremiah and like one of his little followers, like you can see how much they just like adore him and are obsessed with him and like want to sniff his farts. Like they're just so about him. And you're like, but why? Like he's such an asshole and he's so annoying and he's like kind of weird looking and shitty and you're just like, why? But it's like you just see that they are like under his fucking spell and he treats them like shit, but like he gives them these little morsels of like, oh, but if you're with me, you will ascend and like all of this like this manipulation.
That's when trickery. The Jim Jones of it comes in, right? Like the Jim Jones. I find it so interesting the Jonestown stuff, but Like he kind of like it, my whole time, like whenever I like looked into that case, like I'm just like, why are they following him? Like why give this person like validation? And then it's just like the way that he's able to speak to them and the way he's able to like appeal to their values and like the way he's able to kind of like manipulate that. And like I totally saw that here with Sand.
Yeah.
Well, when I first saw like Linus Roach's Jeremiah, I was like, man, Iggy Pop is looking rough. I was like, he's fucking looking terrible.
But at least he's got a good loyal band of friends.
Yeah, right. Well, and this, you know what, kind of strangely, this band of group made me think of The Invitation. It made me think of like the big guy that's Zodiac, like the kind of, you have this of second in command that's like this bald guy and everybody's, I don't know, it vaguely kind of made me think of Invitation. But this whole scene is just intense. Like, God, with Mother Marlene, where she's like, I'll do anything for you. I'll fucking eat shit out of your ass and suck it on your dad. I don't care.
I don't care.
And he's like, I feel naked without her. And he's like, get away from me. Like, God damn, dude, that's crazy.
So brutal.
And I gotta say it. Sister Lucy is hot. I will like.
Why do you think he has her sent in?
Right, exactly. And I was like, oh, that's fun. But, she is interesting to me as a character because she seems to be the only one that has any kind of issue with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the fact that they are just these like two-dimensional fucking death people. There's something about that I was like, it's so interesting seeing one of them the two women in the group kind of seem like they have moments of that where they kind of like, I don't know, when he's talking to Mother Marlene and he's like, I have to have her. And she kind of looks away like you can sense that jealousy kind of thing. And she feels like she's Jeremiah's, like she's the bottom bitch, you know what I mean? Like she's like, you're my ride or die. And it's interesting when he starts talking about Mandy and she's just like, oh, and when you see Lucy later on, Lucy has like multiple moments of it. And I really like that. I like the fact that she's kind of like, she seems like the youngest one. She seems very shy, like very sweet, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but she just kind of like sat there and, had to help chop up somebody's body in a bathtub a couple of times. Like, oh, fuck, that's crazy.
Well, dude, I also wanted to point out one quick thing too, which honestly, this is it's like the color related stuff, but I actually didn't even notice this one until just fucking now watching it as we're talking. The movie actually has kind of a transition between the early part of the movie where colors are a little more like realistic and combined and like multifaceted to this like really washed out, like everything's going to be this one or two, three tops, like saturated colors on screen, and that's it. And that transition is actually it's like right around 18 minutes, and it's Mandy in the forest. I think she's actually dreaming. I think it's implied, but she's in the forest by herself. She's looking up, and you see like this kind of smoke fall across the flowers, and like lights are like flashing on the flowers. And then we cut to the harsh red of the Children of the New Dawn like coming up. And from that point forward, not necessarily everything, but a lot of the movie is extreme colors, where it's like you get everything is red, everything is blue, everything is white. Like it just kind of like washes out. And I think that's a real turning point, because I think Jeremiah also, outside of like all of the real world, like cult, Manson and Jim Jones, like similarities, like all of those parallels, I think the other, like with the internal logic of this movie, him arriving on the scene is the introduction of extreme uncontrolled emotions, like very like all over like Mandy. I think part of her allure is that she's obviously a sad, kind of maybe depressed and like damaged person, but she's managing it very well. And she's like this very gentle soul, and like she's a very balanced person. And Jeremiah is not fucking balanced. Like his colors are all out of balance. It's just fucking red. He's just this red throbbing nightmare person.
It's like a throbbing red dog's dick.
Exactly. Just a glistening, pointy dog dick.
Just that old meat rocket.
Well, he's all about. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Colin.
No,
he's all about like reputation and power. I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but at the turning point, right? When he reveals himself to Mandy, and like she laughs, and he just starts freaking the fuck out. Like it's kind of like apparent that he's just the reason he's so unhinged is because he's trying so hard to show the children how much of a godlike person he is, right? Like that's, yes. I feel like that's where it comes from. Yeah. And it's cool. I'm slowly getting on board with this movie.
I'm becoming unboard. But no, I think that's exactly it. So like, I think obviously it's really easy to tell later on with the way he talks to them. It's like he doesn't want a relationship with any of them. He doesn't want friendship. He wants them to worship him. Like he wants them all to like submit themselves. Like everyone just bow to me. I don't actually want to see anyone as equals or of any kind. Like he the only level of like human interaction he wants is everybody just like bowing in submission to him. And it's just so fucking gross.
Right. It's actually not like, I don't want a personal relationship. You are an object. You are like a pawn. Like the more numbers, the more pawns I have, like the better. But this is where, he gives, what the fuck is Brother Swan? He gives Brother Swan the horn of Abraxas. I looked up a little bit about Abraxas, that I think he was a deity in some, I can't remember what major religion. I know Abraxas, but he carried like a whip and a shield, and they're like the whip. He was kind of like he was a blend of like chaos and order, like of God and Satan kind of thing. And the shield was supposed to represent order and protection and stuff, but the whip was supposed to be like chaos and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting as I was reading about it. And it's interesting seeing about chaos and grief and death and the normalcy of stuff, and like kind of like exactly what Matt's been talking about with this color scheme is like when you see the normal ordinary life, the kind of almost like the first part of the hero's journey, if you want to break it down like a script format, we see in its very normal colors, but then as it starts moving on, the colors kind of get ratcheted up and our world is descended into chaos. And I was like, that's fucking cool. But then it's interesting, whereas like on a normal story pattern, it would come back to the ordinary world, but things have changed. But it's like this never comes back to like an ordinary world. It just fucking like keeps going and going. But I really dig that though. It's a cool ending. But he gives him the horn of Abraxas. We see Mother Marlene scoping out where Mandy works. Did anybody catch where she said she lives by?
Oh,
yeah,
Crystal Lake.
Lake.
Yeah, I was like, cool.
Beautiful.
And it was like, cool, more 80s, like 80s fucking reference shit. I can't wait to cover fucking Jason Takes Manhattan. Matt and I were talking about that. Like,
Matt,
it's
you want to take
so
over for me,
good.
bro? Seriously, you can just jump right on it.
It's so bad.
It's such
good,
a wildly
dude.
piece of shit movie. Oh, it's so fun. Though.
Please come on for that episode, dude. We have to. Oh, that's fucking great.
As long as I can delay it 7 times.
Yeah. Brother Swan and his crew, they venture out into the night and they use the horn of Abraxas to call the Black Skulls to them. They're we can backtrack a little bit. They offer this strange jar to this fucking dude, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And they offer up the kid from Bad Santa as a sacrifice, and I was like, I don't understand what the fuck is going on with this kid,
dude. All right.
I thought it was him. It's not him, but I thought it was him.
Are you guys ready for my theory to get real weird? Are you ready? This is the turning point right here.
I'm ready.
Dude, so one of the things I've noticed about this movie and all the color shit that I'm all horny about, the color green outside of like some trees and stuff at the beginning is actually a pretty rare color in this movie. You don't see green much, like especially like really like potent, saturated green. You don't see that. There's really only like 2 or 3 times you see it, and the Horn of Abraxas is one of them. When he takes it out to hand it to Brother Swan earlier, the screen starts flashing green. It makes it look like it's irradiated or something. It's like powerfully green. And then when they use it to call the bikers, the Black Skulls. So my interpretation of that has basically become, still working out the deets. I'm working on the book, guys. But my interpretation is the Horn of Abraxas represents jealousy, like extreme, insecure, lashing out, jealousy.
Green with envy,
with envy, exactly. And like they use the horn, the most powerful, potent jealousy, to call up the worst version of anger. This like black rage, like that's what the Black Skulls are. They're this unfeeling, like they have no emotions at all, except they're just animated by like rage and hatred. And he calls them out to take the woman he wants. And now this also kind of comes back to my whole theory of that Jeremiah and Red are actually just kind of like 2 psychological halves of one person. I don't know what that person would be. I know it's getting real abstract, but my take on this is Red is the more stable half of whoever this person is, and Jeremiah is the narcissistic, extremely unstable and insecure and jealous half of this person. And when they think they're losing Mandy or they don't understand Mandy, their jealousy lashes out and they call out upon rage, and that's what they use to try and control Mandy. I know, pretty weird.
I mean, but not when you think of normal human behavior, though. Like,
right?
You see your significant other, talking to somebody on the street, or they kiss somebody that you don't know, and you're like, "Hey, what the fuck?" And it's kind of like your green turns to red,
right?
Like that. I mean, that makes
That's
sense.
Cool,
I mean, I like it.
I like it a lot, Matt. I like it a lot.
Was I also slightly high when I came up with this? Maybe just like a little bit, but I'm telling you, it makes sense.
I tell you right now, there's something. Well, no, I'll save it. I'll save it for when the scene comes up. I don't want to ruin it yet.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever the hell you are. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, guys. Just while we're taking a quick break here, I am going to plug some shit. No, it's not advertising. It's nothing paid. It's basically just kind of self-masturbatory stuff. Basically, follow us. Follow us on our socials. We have 2 pages on Facebook called Midnight Double Feature, obviously, and then we have our main group, which is called The After Party, which is fantastic. Our community loves to engage there, and that's our main way to communicate with our audience. Please follow The After Party. That's a fantastic page. And please follow us on Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature, and Twitter, which is at MDF Pod. You can listen to us anywhere on iTunes, anywhere on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever. And if there's no way that you can listen to us on your device, please let us know by getting in touch with us. You can do that by sending us an email, which is midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com. Now, last but certainly not least, please remember to rate and review us on iTunes. We would love to get your guys' feedback, whether it's positive or negative. Just please remember to, put a star and let us know in your little speech bubble thingy what you think of us and where we can improve. That would be fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for listening to my little rant here, and back to the show, I guess. See you later.
Hey guys, welcome back. Coming at you with the second part of our coverage of Mandy. Special guest Matthew Anderson. Our bladders are empty. We are freshly squeezed. Our drinks are tapped off, and our cocks are hard for psychosomatic visual cinema. So
did you just have a stroke? Are you all right?
Right, yeah. Picking up right where we left off, we're pretty much at the part where the black skulls show up to Red Mandy's place. Dude, the near dark imagery of them standing up there and like the light coming up from behind them, all I could think of was near dark.
Oh hell yeah.
When they're standing outside like watching in, I was like, holy fuck. And then once they get inside, it's all Hellraiser.
Hellraiser, baby.
I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like the light flashing and shit. And you're right. The blue kind of signifies like, I don't know. To me, the blue kind of signifies like you said, like the sadness, but also like kind of death and stuff. Like there's scenes where it's them going to sleep at night and it's all blue and you can feel it kind of distant. And when they get together, that's where the colors start to man. But when they're apart, it was all blue. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Oh, and one thing.
Oh, go, Matt. Go, Matt.
I was going to say, one thing I noticed about the black skulls, even on my first viewing, I remember this stood out to me, is that you can literally never see them clearly. They are always, even like, you see them in profile, like you'll see like the wall behind them will be red or blue or something, but they are always in shadow. Like their actual features, the details of their face, of their clothes are like completely black. They're always just utterly black. And I think that represents a lot, which I'm still figuring out with these guys. I'm like, it's just like unfeeling black hatred and rage because they are implied to not even be human anymore. Did you guys catch some of that with the way they're talked about, where it's like they took this insane amount of LSD, which for one, like if you know anything about, you don't have to be a fucking like, member of the Grateful Dead to know, but like LSD is something you take like a single drop of for a hit. Like a single drop is like, wow, that's a full hit of LSD. You should actually probably be careful. 2 hits, you better know what you're doing. And they just take a mason jar of it, just full tilt and just chug it. And they're like, more. You're like, okay, your brain is just fucking scrambled. Like you don't live in our reality anymore.
Dude, I was thinking about that. It's like I could not imagine like the lifelong trip that these people are on of like just insane, like knife porn, fucking satanic. Like I don't know. Like there's just like somebody getting fucked in the ass with a knife. Like these people, like what the fuck?
Matt, can we get an exclusive and just get you to confirm that LSG and LSD are the same thing, right?
It's all the same. It's all the same.
All right, awesome. I did want to talk about the visuals of the what are they called? What, the black skull?
Yeah.
Dude, like that, the guy with the nails in him, like that looks straight ripped out of Mad Max Fury Road. Reminds me of like the buzzards. Holy shit, man! Like that guy just looks awesome. But yeah, I think what you're talking about there, Matt, like the fact that they're kind of like always obscured and you never really get like a really clean shot of them. That might be I don't know. That might be one of those things you hear about with like low budget films like where they can't afford like, great makeup or extended shots and things like that. and they kind of like have to kind of like obscure them so they look good. But like that might be kind of like a happy accident on this movie's part, right? Because the budget for this movie is not massive.
Fairly small, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that just kind of like ends up working in its favor if it is like that kind of situation.
I can see that.
Right, yeah. I the scene coming up that fucking gets me. So obviously Mandy gets taken, you know, they knock Red out, but the fucking wasp in that jar is like, what the fuck? like, oh god.
That reminded me of some Matrix shit, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh
the
yeah.
fucking thing they plug into your belly button.
Yeah.
Well, after force feeding her LSD and directly into her fucking eye, they shoot her in the neck with that wasp thing. Says it's the cherry on top. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, I dig this. And this is where Mandy first meets Jeremiah. And I mean, geez, the scene itself it's a very long scene. But the thing that's really interesting about it is when they're kind of doing the face melding.
Oh my god, yeah.
Between Mandy and
that's what I was talking about. So that was my favorite visual of this entire movie. I've never seen
it's great.
anything like this, dude. Like I've never seen anything like this done before. I mean, like, you know, you've seen like face kind of like melding before, but like not in and out and in and out and like
and so subtly.
So subtly and mesmerizingly. Like it's like a dream. Like it's literally like I'm watching this. This is kind of like when I woke up. Like when the first time watching this movie, I woke up and I saw this. I was like, oh, what the fuck? Am I still dreaming here?
Oh, dude, no joke. Like I saw that. I think I mentioned this. Like I saw it for the very first time in theaters, and I had no idea about this movie. Two friends of mine were like, hey, we've heard about this movie, Mandy. It's actually got Nicolas Cage. It's supposed to be like really trippy and awesome, but like over the top. And I was like, okay. And that's literally all I knew about it. I went and saw it. And saw this on the big screen, which I would highly recommend. It's already starting to go around like theaters again because it's like becoming a cult classic.
Nice.
But dude, this sequence, I mean, I have so much to say about this whole sequence. It's one of my favorite in the entire movie. But the face melding part, like if you've never done any kind of psychedelics, you might not know. But straight up, watching this movie completely stone cold sober, it gave me the sensation of hallucinating on hallucinogens. I was like, oh my God. Like I literally like looked down at my drink. I'm like, did somebody spike me? Like, what the fuck? Like it gives you that same disorienting, like, I don't know what I'm looking at anymore, like feeling. And it's just perfect. It's such a great, simple effect and done so well. And the only other thing I want to say about the effect and the use of it in this movie, dude, this scene says this scene right here is what says everything you need to know about Jeremiah Sand. Like this is truly the scene that explains him. And a big part of that, you know, again, here we are with the big heavy duty saturated colors and everything's blurring. If you'll notice the color on top, like essentially like the foregrounded color that you're seeing everything through is red. Like the whole scene is very red. But every time Jeremiah moves, you realize the color underneath the red, is blue. And I've interpreted that as he's an extremely angry, willful, manipulative person, but underneath it all, he's actually a very small, sad, vulnerable person. And Mandy can see through it. Like she's able to see through that you're just like a scared little narcissistic bitch. And like if I fucking laugh at you and your dumb song and your stupid dick, it's gonna crush you. And she knows it. And she crushes him with that. But like what I love about that moment is, and this is like also like what a cool way to visually represent a cult leader trying to overtake someone's own identity and like their own self-identity.
Way of thinking. Yeah.
Right, exactly. By literally, he's like taking on her face and like making her identify with him. And like he's trying to take her over and absorb her in this weird way. And it's represented visually by literally their faces becoming indistinguishable. And I'm like, that is just fucking brilliant filmmaking. Like that is so cool. And I've, like you said, Zoab, I've never seen anything like it. Like it's a big part of why this movie has risen up so high for me as far as how I regard it. I'm like, dude, this movie's a fucking masterpiece. Like it might not be everybody's cup of tea. It's a fucking weird one, but what it's trying to say and the way it gets it across, I think is genuinely masterful. Like this scene is incredible.
I don't think I'll ever forget this scene. Like this is one that just kind of sticks with you. I'd really like to know how they achieved it. And it's funny because like I want to give some credit to Vulture. I read a Vulture article and they interviewed the director. The director's name, dude, I can't get over it. Like Panos Cosmatos. It might as well be Panel Comatose. Like I don't know why. But he was like, he talks about like how he's like, this character of Sand is kind of like someone you would see on Reddit blaming people who won't have sex for him, like with him.
Oh my god,
and he's just kind of like he's just kind of like it's kind of like an indictment on men on the internet, right? Like this is a quote. He's like, I conceived this character from personal experience and observation, and I thought of making him this cartoonish monstrosity. And like, I'm just like, that is kind of like 100% on point. Like when he reveals himself here and then like she just laughs in his face and it's just this massive, shame kind of like situation for him. The way he reacts and the way he just like carries on like a bitch.
Oh yeah.
That's just totally like the male ego.
Right.
Because Cosmatos goes on to say it. He's like, this is the scary part. He's like, I was working on this script for 6 years or something like that, and eventually the world caught up to my nightmare. The male ego is a terrifying thing. If it's shattered, it becomes even more dangerous.
Ooh, yeah. There's a great quote. You guys know Margaret Atwood, right? She wrote Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
She has a great quote, and I feel like this scene is like the perfect representation of it. I bet Cosmatos is aware of it. That men are afraid of women laughing at them, and women are afraid of men killing them.
Right.
And I'm like, that's kind of this scene is the perfect representation of that. Because all she does, like when you break it down, what does Mandy do? She just fucking laughs at him. Because in truth, this thing is fucking ridiculous. Like you barge into my house, you play your shitty folk song, and you whip your dick out and expect me to like worship you. And she just fucking laughs like, you idiot. No. And he just falls apart because of that. He acts like he's being stabbed in the heart because he's so fucking weak and insecure.
Right. And he's like, he gives the whole spiel, right? He's like, oh, I was a failed musician and then I found God. And like, if you're in like Mandy's situation, I would immediately start laughing from the failed musician part. Right. I'd just be like, you fucking moron.
And I love when he starts getting angry about it too, and he's like, "Don't fucking look at me." She just laughs harder. She's like, "Ha ha ha ha!" Like just fucking laughs even harder at him because she knows she's like, "Oh, I won, you little bitch!" Like I'm crushing your balls right now.
It's good stuff. This is my favorite scene in the movie, dude. Like this is such a turning point of the movie as well.
I love it. Love it.
Well, are you guys fucking done?
I'm almost done. Give me a second. Oh, I'm almost done.
Gotta shake that leg.
No, the interesting thing about the scene to me is where when you see him kind of stand in front of her and the beams behind his head, it kind of looks like what a depiction of Christ would be like. Like, when it's kind of showing it from her point of view, like looking up at him, and there's these like, it looks like how a little kid would draw a sun, totally. Just these beams coming out of this piece of wood.
Looks like Gozer looking down at the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, then die. But no, I really dig this scene, and props to Linus Roach for never blinking during that entire exchange. With he's like staring right into the camera. I'm like, dude, that's like a fucking 5-minute long scene. Like it's like that's crazy. Like, and as I was watching it, because I the first time I'd seen it, I was like, dude, he never blinked. And then as I'm watching it the second time, I just kept staring at him and not blinking. And when I looked away, I was like, whoo, that's bracing.
One super subtle thing about this scene too, this will be the last thing I say about it, or else I'll talk about this damn thing all night. But it's one of my favorite little subtle moments when he's sitting there, the camera cuts to his face and they start to go back and forth, but it's like an unbroken shot close up on his face. The other thing that happens is the sound, it goes from like Mandy obviously like having this bizarre trip and the sound's all like wavy and echoey and like washed out until all of a sudden his voice becomes like crystal clear. And like you don't hear the music anymore. You don't hear anything else. It's almost like a guy is like on the microphone really close. And it's like he's whispering in your ear, and it goes from so distorted to the only thing you can hear. And I feel like, again, that's like another good way of representing, I'm going to be your little God. You have to worship me. I'm your everything now. I'm taking up your whole field of view. Yeah. Right. And I'm taking over. I'm the only thing you hear, the only thing you see, the only thing you care about. And I'm like, what a great way of showing that idea, like displaying that concept.
So I like it, Matthew. I'm
winning you over, baby. I'm winning.
You're winning me over.
I could see, him listening to this fucking terrible "Every man must take a wife." So fucking stupid.
Jeremiah I could see him. Sand was a righteous man. So fucking lame.
I could see him, like, after recording this, just being washed up and drinking Jack straight from the bottle. He's like, I opened up for Jim Croce. Like, just like that guy who fucking who just hangs onto that thing. Yeah. So yeah, this is this whole thing of, he has shown me the path that I was destined for. I was lost. I was denied everything. And he said, go out and take whatever, blah, 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 blah. That's this fucking crazy ass, self-centered ass bullshit. I like that he basically drops in her. He's like, hey, yeah, here's my SoundCloud. Like, the modern day version of that. Like, trying to get some the modern day drugging a woman and making her listen to your SoundCloud. But I'm
a 17-year-old cloud rapper. What's up?
Oh God, so insufferable. Like, Jesus. And I was in a band too. Trust me, self-promotion is just like, it makes me want to throw up.
What's your TikTok, Matthew?
Oh my God, I still don't have TikTok because I'm 30.
Yeah. Like, I post stuff to my Instagram story. I'm like, I'm too old for this. Why am I doing? Like, I post it. I'm like, what am I doing?
Dude, my curse is that I start to get good at apps as they become not cool. Like, I feel like I've gotten better at Instagram, and I'm like, people don't give a shit about Instagram anymore. Fuck.
Fucking Matthew just discovered MySpace.
I'm like, dude, guys, I have the best playlist on my MySpace now. Come to my page.
I can code like a motherfucker.
Me that code, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, he attempts to seduce her. However, his attempts fail as she begins mocking him in front of the group.
Beautiful.
Now, the whole time Red is outside, and then he's confronted by Jeremiah, Swan, and Lucy.
Tell me what to do.
Jeremiah.
Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do.
Oh, fuck me.
Oh, dude. That's like, some of his shit is like, it's so over the top, but it's not like, it's the over the top that I like. It's not the over the top, like, she's got a great ass. It's not, it's like, it's this more subtle kind of like, it's a quiet, like, what the fuck, just this meltdown of him. And I dig that a lot because it's not this big bombastic performance. It's these very quiet moments of him being, of his eccentricities. And I was like, it's really fucking good. And I love Nicolas Cage in this, but Linus Roach is probably my MVP. And I was like, I just love it, man. He does such a great job.
He's really good.
If this were any other movie, that would seem like so ridiculous and out of place. But in the scope of the movie, his portrayal of that guy feels right at home. It doesn't feel too big or too small or too crazy. It feels like right at the perfect level that it needs to be for this heightened kind of surrounding that we have.
Right.
So yeah, this whole thing, I didn't need this scene, but it's cool, I guess. It's a little bit of character development for Lucy, I feel like, where we see, she's not just this, like, she's not just totally like, oh, here, let me click. And, she's jumps and she's scared, and I don't know, they kind of flesh her out a little bit more there, and I enjoy it because she seems like the only one who's kind of like, like, I don't really, this is not the fun part,
Right.
Like, this is like, she's the only one of them I really want to know more about. Like, how did you fall into this shit? Did you like flunk out of college or like,
right.
like what the fuck happened,
Dude, another cool thing about this moment too is I think it says a lot about what Jeremiah thinks love is, because he comes out there being like, oh, you think you and your ugly whore and so in love, let me show you what love is. And he just makes this girl get on the ground and possibly kill herself in front of everybody for him. And it's like, dude, you think love is just submission. Like, you think it's you having your will
Good
over
call.
other people. And it's like, that's not love. Like, of course you think this is what it is because you're a psychotic narcissist. But like, it really shows like this is his idea of pure love, which is just horrifying.
Right. It's almost like you, in the way that like you would treat a dog. Like people think like, like training a dog, like, oh, it needs to be stern. It needs to do what I say. And it's like, yeah, but that's not like, you have a good trained dog. That doesn't mean you have like love with that dog. It's like, I don't know. There's something interesting about like the submissiveness being like seeing the submissiveness linked with like the obedience in that. And the people are like, oh, that's a good dog. I'm like, no, a good dog to me is a dog that like comes up and just lays on top of you like, hey, what's up, dude? And I'm like, yes, get on the bed. Fuck you. Fuck the obedience. So yeah, and the whole time Red is barbed wired up outside. Jesus Christ, this whole scene is interesting. I don't really need it, but it is interesting. Like you said, it's good character development for Jeremiah, and I like the little bits with Lucy. She's an interesting character to me. And they produced the blade of the pale knight, and Pierce's side with it. I love what he says. You know what the problem with Jesus was? He didn't offer up someone in his stead. And I'm like, damn, that's a good fucking line. I was like, that's a really good line, man. I could imagine Jesus just being like, it's like trying to swap places with somebody. It reminds me of like Iron Man 2, and they put that twin in with Mickey Rourke and he kills the other one. That's all I can fucking think of. Yeah, again, just more Christian imagery of him being pierced in the side with the thing. And like you said, Matt, the flux of the color green, and it's great. And the tiger also on his shirt. When you start noticing his t-shirts, actually, there's a couple of different things that I want to get into later on. But the tiger on his shirt is interesting because we keep seeing that imagery pop up later on.
Did you guys? I didn't know this until my maybe 10th or 12th fucking viewing of this damn thing. Did you see the end credit scene?
What? No.
Like the post credit scene? It's super short. It's literally like 2 seconds. It's very small, but it's one of Mandy's drawings of Red. Like she drew this portrait of Red next to a roaring tiger. Like that's how she sees him. I'm like, oh, that's so fucking cool. But that's it. It's just that one little shot.
Waste my fucking time with this shit. No, I'm just kidding. No, I stuck around and I saw that afterwards. It's like, oh, that's fucking cool. And like, there is something cool. Like, I guess we need to talk about it now. The 44 shirt that he wears. So I was like, man, 44, I was like, that's got to be some kind of, that number has to have some kind of significance,
right? Just
because like I've heard, I've heard, it's kind of like 666, it feels like there's just kind of this, legend kind of thing around the number 44. Let me see.
It's close to Call 45, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Afro-Man.
It was, the number 44 is kind of, it's something about, it's very angelic. It's supposed to mean that angels are guiding you like on your path to your goal. And I was like, holy shit. Like when Red is driving at the end and he looks over and there's Mandy, but she's not really there. And I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. And the whole time we see these animated things of her, like him having these visions of her, and at the end actually seeing her. Like what's interesting is we don't see her physical form again after she gets burned right here. We don't see her physical form again. We see these short animated things, and then right at the end is where we see her in her physical form. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like it seems like an interesting like little like a teaser along the way, and then at the end I feel like we're seeing what Red is seeing, that she has maybe been there all along, and that he can see her but nobody else really can. The angel number 44 is a sign that your angels are close to you at this time. Your prayers have been heard and your angels are working hard to answer them. And answer angel number 44 is an indication the abundance that you seek is on its way to you. And I'm like, that's sounds pretty in line with this.
Damn,
like,
dude,
it's like,
I'm glad you researched that, because honestly, that was one of the last things of this movie where I was like, what the fuck is the 44 thing? And my dumbass was all like, well, isn't Red 44 a food coloring? Isn't that a thing? I'm like, that was my only dumbass theory. That's way better. Yours is way better. Shit.
Well, because it made me actually think of the band like Plus 44. I think it was like Tom DeLonge, Blink-182 kind of shit. And I was like, what is 44? I've seen that number before, but I never really knew the significance. And hey, that's just Google. I mean, I don't know. That could be read off a fucking tarot card by some crackhead for all
honestly,
I know.
Both of your theories are much better than mine, because I was just like, well, the production designer just went into their closet and dug out that little number and just chucked it on him. Here you go, Nick. Chuck it on.
Yeah, we're all out of 42 and 43. Here you go.
44 is similar. I don't know.
So yeah, and this is pretty much where Red is forced to watch the group as they roast Mandy like a pig in a blanket.
So awful,
dude. The guy licking his teeth, he's like as he's the guy holding the rope, who has like the Wangro haircut from Heat, but he's like 6'8" and fucking ripped. I'm like, you look like you have the body of Drago. He's like, you have the body of Drago from Rocky IV, but the face of Drango or something. Like, I don't know what the fuck to call this guy.
I have okay, Matt.
Oh no, you go ahead.
So just a little observation, and like this is so dark, and I hate that I have to bring this up, but I don't know. I feel like these kinds of people with this victim and this kind of situation, it's not weird to me, but I was like genuinely surprised that there wasn't a sexual assault before the murder.
Yep.
Like, is that a thing that you guys thought about or considered? Like, I was just like genuinely surprised, but it also kind of, it struck me as weird, and like that might be my fucked up mind, but yeah.
No, I think if you get into enough true crime shit where you're like, a group takes a woman by force, you're like, well, I can only imagine the worst things and that can possibly happen to a human being are about to probably happen. But no, I was surprised as well. But I guess in the sense of like her laughing at him destroying that ego, it's just like, well, fuck, I can't possibly get my dick up, my scaly, gross Iggy Pop dick. But no, I totally see where you're coming with it. And I kind of said that to Lindsay when I first saw it. I was like, wow, I really kind of thought that was going to happen because he seems like the type of character, he seems like that type of person. And he literally says, I go out and take what I want. And I was like, sure, this guy has definitely raped somebody before. That wouldn't surprise me at all. That's like, I mean, fuck, how many states has this guy fucking wanted in? But yeah, they fucking roast Mandy. They leave. They leave Red to die. I love the shot of them taking off and getting into the car and Jeremiah stops for just a second and looks over at Red and walks off. It's like, I love that shot for some reason. It's great. Yeah. It looks so fucking good. I have absolutely no idea why, but I just fucking love the way that whole thing is shot. There are parts of this movie that weirdly feel like a John Carpenter movie to me. Oh, and totally. I think that's maybe one of them. There's something about, I mean, if you're making a movie and he's got a lot of, and Cosmatos said, he's like, I was a big fan of just this era. I was growing up and, there's Hellraiser and these great, metal music that was coming out. So I think John Carpenter probably played a huge, 80s horror, Jesus Christ. He's like the fucking, right. Like John Carpenter and horror directing is to me what like Stephen King is to writing. And that's like all, like, I think John Carpenter is just fucking amazing, dude. I can never get enough John Carpenter. I wish he'd do more, but yeah, so they leave him to die. Red ends up getting away. And dude, this is my favorite scene. The way this is shot of him coming up and her just turning to ash.
It's so good and so fucking sad, man. Like this whole thing just bummed me out so much. You ever watch a movie? I mean, I know you kind of talked about at the beginning, Zoe, like, it's when you watch the kind of movie that's like, it's such a bummer that you're like, I don't want to watch that again. Like, that's okay. Like that, I kind of want to walk away from it. Right. It took me, I probably saw this movie once and didn't watch it again until like 8 or 9 months later. And finally came back to it. Even though I was curious about it because it was such an interesting movie. But this scene, dude, it was tough for me to enjoy the rest of the movie on my first watch after this. It's just so fucking sad and dark.
It's heart-wrenching. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and she's torched like a fucking thrift store mannequin. Like, she just like turns to dust and you're like, oh my God, like that's fucking crazy. I don't know. You kind of think like people being burned alive, there's like a skeleton or something, but literally just
yeah.
And it's gone. You're like, holy
Thanos just
shit,
snapped his finger.
Right. Well, and it also kind of feels like that last bit of like not sanity, but like normalcy in Red just kind of
gives
like it's gone because now it's like fucking, it's like game on. When he goes back into the fucking house, the cheddar goblin thing. So this is like
fucked up. What is this?
I go ahead.
I sent you guys a sketch. Did you watch it? The Too Many Cooks sketch?
Dude, I love
to watch it at all.
Holy shit.
I've seen Too Many Cooks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, the guy who made Cheddar Goblin is the one who made the Smurf Cat and the Too Many Cooks sketch.
Beautiful.
And that's why I sent it to you. And it's so fucking funny. And it's like, that sounds totally correct. Because it's the surrealness of the Cheddar Goblin. It's like, oh my God. And it's so random, though. Like, what did you guys think of this?
I don't know.
Okay.
I still don't know.
My take on this might not be correct. I don't know. For a long time, I was just like, I don't know what the fuck that is. It's funny, whatever. But my take on it now, thinking about colors, again, it's one of the only moments where in this entire movie where you see green. The Cheddar Goblin is like actually super green. And I took it as like this kind of silly aside that was making fun of jealousy, but also kind of like showing it, the idea of like jealousy fucking vomiting itself onto everyone around it kind of shit. And like jealousy's the heart of all of this like horrible stuff, I guess, because of the green. That's all I've got. That's all I've got, though.
Did you put your shoes on before you stretched?
I got to stretch. Gotta really stretch for that one. Otherwise, I don't fucking know. I have no clue.
So,
well, and I read something behind the scenes where they're like, these poor kids, we just had to puke up mac and cheese on them for like 6 hours. And I was like, oh my God.
you know what's funny? I'm just reading something from Panos Cosmatos about the Cheddar Goblin, and like this one sentence kind of gives it so much more like sense. He says, it's like the universe slapping him in the face with its lunacy. Like that right
there.
there.
You go.
Fuck yeah. Love it, dude.
Well, and it feels obscene, like coming back after seeing this awful thing and you're covered in blood and you don't have any pants on and like you've almost degloved your hands, like ripping the fucking flesh off of them, and you come in and it's just like, this is the normal world now.
Right.
Everything is done. And it's like, that feels like inappropriate. I don't know. It feels so like gross. But this great scene of him going into the bathroom and getting
the single most
vodka.
Nicolas Cage scene of the movie.
My God,
This
dude.
is peak Cage.
I love this. And like mostly because of the camera work. Like I feel like the camera operator, like Nick Cage is so switched on in this moment here that he's just so like, I feel like he's about to like explode past the cameraman. And if you watch the scene, it starts out very wide with this like very like wide angle shot, and then it starts to go in, but then he starts to like explode, and then the camera operator backs off a little bit to like kind of like give him more room. It's wild, dude. I really, really, really dug this moment. And Nick Cage is genuinely solid here, like as an actor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And dude, nobody on film
this also
has drank this much outside of Denzel Washington in Flight. Like, holy shit. you just chugged a bottle of vodka. Fuck. Oh,
God,
brutal.
I would be fucking throwing up so fast. I fucking hate vodka. But there is something about seeing the tiger shirt. It's like this feels like the unleashing of that tiger.
Yes.
Like that's what it feels like. This is come to pass now. And I also don't want to go past a line earlier. This is going to seem so random out of context when he's like, Jeremiah's talking to Mandy and he's like, so how do you feel, blah, blah, or something. She's like, I see a reaper, because coming up, he goes to Carruthers and he gets, just kind of in a general sense, we can pick apart what we want, but he goes to Carruthers, gets his bow and arrow, and then he starts making the axe and stuff. And the axe is, I mean, it's almost like a reaper staff. Like it literally looks like that to me, like the long, tall, and then the slender part coming down is like, but this whole thing, I was like, is that the black dude from Predator?
Oh, yeah.
Hell
I
yeah.
stopped for a second. I was like, holy shit. I was like,
dude.
that's
Hell yeah.
That's crazy. It's so random, you know? I was like, what the
But more
fuck?
than that, dude, I'll tell you who he is. He is from Commando.
Hell
Fuck you, asshole.
That's my favorite, dude. When I saw him in this movie, I had no fucking idea. Like, I knew nothing about this walking in, and I was like, oh shit, it's Bill Duke. Fuck yes. I wanted him to be in it more, but I was like, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, it's a, and I love this scene. This is one of my favorite Nicolas Cage moments. Is he goes in, he's getting the bow and arrow. Oh yeah, you should really use it. I'll give him to you if you put him to good use. And this whole thing. He's like, fucking crazy evil man, and I'm like, that's great. I fucking love that. And he tells him this is where we get kind of the Black Skull's like origin story, which is now I think we could have made it farther without this, but at the same time, it is kind of like, Okay, it's like this movie's like running a marathon, and I'm giving it my all the whole time, and I kind of got to stop for a second and get like normalcy before, because it's about to get real crazy. This almost feels like the eye of the storm, like the calm before everything really goes to shit.
Right.
And this is where he tells them, the Black Skulls, they were. So, Matt, because you've seen this so much, so what exactly happens? The Black Skulls end up taking a really bad batch made by the chemist.
Yes.
Is that right? Like they pissed him off somehow?
Right. Yeah. The only way he describes it is like the chemist took a disliking to them. Like they were already pretty awful dudes. So, and they were, like all about his LSD. So he made this just like insanely potent, insanely powerful, also just like tainted batch of LSD. And they took it, and that just like, I think he was trying to fuck them over, but it also just like turned them into something else. Like they are just creatures now. They're not human. And I think the real big clue in this scene about like what the Black Skulls are, and also I would argue, according to my fucking theory, what Red becomes is that he says they live in a world of pain and they fucking love it. And that's like their motivation. Like they are people who have lost all sense of emotion, and they live in a world of pain, not unlike the Cenobites from Hellraisers. And they just enjoy that at this point. Like they've lost touch with any emotion or like happiness or joy or sadness. Like they just live in pain, and that's their whole existence. And it's almost fun to them at this point. Like that's their whole deal.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, considering that like later we see one of the Black Skulls just casually just sitting down and watching some porn, right?
Yeah, while huffing a bunch of blow.
Yeah.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. Y'all back the fuck off. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was America.
This is Daddy's Coke and Porn Hour. Leave him alone.
Well, and the interesting thing with Red later on is, and I didn't come up with this myself, but someone's like, there's 3 of these Black Skulls, and it's like a fourth. It's like apocalyptic like horseman. It's like the completing of this, like it's the fourth corner. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because there's so much Christ allegory in the beginning with the hand getting pierced and the side getting stabbed, and then to see him become like the flip side of that. It's kind of like here is like Jeremiah, and then here's Red, and then it's kind of 2 sides of the same coin. And it was the same thing with that. Oh God, what does he say? The horn of fucking help me out, Matt. What does he say? Abraxas. Thank you. The horn of Abraxas, and Abraxas was that kind. He was order and disorder. He was a blend of both. So I think it's interesting that I didn't know anything of what Matt was going to talk about with them kind of being a similar person. But then I read online, separate from him having that thought, that Abraxas was this person that was two heads of the same coin. And then later on, kind of seeing, reading stuff online and people saying that possibly that, that he would be like the 4th horseman of the apocalypse in a way, because there's so much biblical stuff. It's like, that's interesting, him starting off seeing all this like Christ imagery, and at the end he's like a fucking demon. And I was like, hell yeah, like that's cool, because it seems to symbolize both chaos and disorder, and I really, really dig that. So I think that's interesting that you brought that up, and then there was that whole thing about Abraxas, and I was like, holy shit, that fucking chimed right when you said it, and I was like, god damn,
here we go.
you're hunting rabid animals, and the odds are that you'll die. Don't be negative. That's one of my favorite lines. It's fucking great. I saw them once from a distance. They looked like they were in a world of pain, and the weird part was they fucking loved it. We cue the weapon building montage. This is one of my favorite shots of the whole thing, is when he gets the first half and he dips it in the water and all the smoke, steam comes. I'm like, oh, that looks fucking good. That looks
you can, you know what? You can buy,
actually.
Do you know you can buy that axe, like a movie replica, perfect quality axe? I think it's even fucking metal, but it's like $600.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let's pump the brakes here. Matt, do you have one? Because didn't you dress up as Red for Halloween? I remember seeing a photo.
I sure did. And, I looked into getting one, and then I saw what they cost, and I was like, I'm just going to buy an axe from the Halloween store and spray paint it chrome. Because fuck that.
Lovely.
I wanted it, though. I still want it.
Well, and I saw something. I fucking, for life, man, I should have wrote it down. But there's a metal band, and Cosmatos is a fan of them, and the letter F is in their their logo, whatever, the face fuckers or whatever it is. And then the F looks exactly like his axe, like the way it's lettered and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It kind of, once you look at it, it does kind of look like a small R, like a letter F or something. Or it might be a fucking T. I don't fucking know. But this is where we get the whole, and I like when you see him holding the axe, there's this real bright light behind him. There's the number 44. I was like, yeah, he's like an angel of death. Like that's what it feels like this is leading up to. And, this is where he goes fucking hunting. I love, dude, Nicolas Cage is flying in that fucking car, man. Like, it made me nervous. I was like, dude, oh my God, like deer jump out at any fucking second and just destroy you. Like, that makes me so nervous having family that lives like in a wooded area. And I'm like, oh God, something's going to fucking just jump out and destroy my car.
Dude, also,
but I love
real
it.
quick before we go past it, I found what you were talking about, Colin. It is the band Celtic Frost. And if you look up their logo, the F on Frost, it is exactly like the Beast axe from Mandy. It's so perfect.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
I'm glad I'm not just crazy and I just made that shit up in like a fever dream or something.
Oh, but
But
by
no,
the way, have we gone past the animated sequence yet?
Oh, there's a couple.
I didn't really jump straight to it, but yeah, there's a few of them. I briefly mentioned it, but no, if you want to get into specifics,
No,
go ahead.
I don't want to go into specifics. I just don't want to go past it. Like, I think
You're like, no, fuck
'cause
that.
isn't it? No, fuck that. Let's keep moving forward. But still, like, I think it's like around here where the title of like Mandy like comes up on screen, right? Like,
Yes.
Right. Yes,
right.
exactly. 100%. It's like right after he's holding it, when that light's coming out from behind him. And I that's where I get that real like angel of death kind of feel.
Well, you know what's interesting about
go ahead.
about that too is that the movie is actually kind of, and I didn't notice this for a long time, like it's kind of actually broken up into 3 acts because there's only 3 title cards like that throughout the movie. The first one's the Shadow Mountains, and that's kind of like when he's living at home with Mandy, and it's having those like romantic sequences where they're talking, and then we get that title card for Children of the New Dawn with the introduction of Jeremiah and all those guys, and the last one we get is right after he finishes making the axe, and it's Mandy. So the movie's named Mandy, and the third act is also named Mandy once he's finally going off the deep end and going hard on revenge.
Yeah, I always love a good montage, and that feels like this movie doesn't normally feel like it would have like a montage in it. It doesn't feel like that kind of movie. But with this, I feel like it's such a the main thrust of this is not that it's a send up to 80s movies, but there kind of is mixed in there, just naturally a send up to like 80s stuff. And I like that, the 80s montage. I was like, fuck yeah. Like they mentioned Crystal Lake, and there's like I feel like the book that she's reading is something like Stephen King's Eye of the Dragon, like this like fantasy 80s novel that fucking nobody like. I know a lot of people don't like it, but fuck them. But yeah, this is where after he makes the weapon, he kind of goes hunting, and now, I'm confused because I know he crossbows the dude off the bike and he hits him, which is just insane that he just flops right off this guy. But does he kill the one that he hits, or is that the one who's like knife jacking off in the couch later on? I kind of got the Cenobites mixed up
the
here.
one he hits with his car.
Right.
I think that one's dead because I think there's only 4 more after that. Now there was like 5 total, right?
I thought there was like 3. Fuck it, I don't know. But just and what's interesting is seeing like the LSD is kind of like it's the madness, but it's also like I feel like Red has to do that because it's kind of like playing in a major league sport and everybody's taking steroids and you're not, and it's like like he has to. He has to kind of get on that level because this dude gets demolished by a car and it just like ricochets off him. I don't know, the jury's not if he's fucking dead or not, but he gets picked up, and this is where we have him handcuffed to the thing with the fucking goddamn bolt in his hand. Oof. Like, God, dude. Again, a lot of like Christ imagery for me.
Totally.
He starts crying, and the guy comes over, and I was like, dude, this feels like fucking like hostile. Like all this feels like like fucking hostile to me now.
It's such a nightmare. Yeah. And how much do you love though when the first Cenobite when he's chained up and it confronts him and he's like, you have a death wish, and then he like slices him and cuts him, and he's just like, he ripped my favorite shirt, and then later later on when he's killing him, he's like, "You ripped my shirt!" Like, he's just like so fucking pissed about it in the best Cage way.
Yeah, I love that when they're finding it. You ripped my shirt! You ripped my shirt! I was like, holy shit, that's fucking great. But you know what? The imagery of this whole scene in a very broad way from the death of all the Black Skulls reminded me of the old PlayStation video game Manhunt.
Oh my God, that's
Like,
true.
that
game was so
brutal.
brutal.
I was like,
That's banned here.
What?
Yeah. I'm not even kidding. Manhunt is banned here.
That game was really fucked.
America!
You had like
Australia
my games.
Australia's like notoriously bad with its video game rating.
Oh fuck! No, but that game, that's like one of the very few games where I'm like, yeah, that game kind of was fucked up, guys. Like you had finishing moves where you just took a plastic bag and choke people to death with it over their head, and you're like, God damn, I'm 13. Should I be doing this?
That's what it felt like playing the Punisher game that came out with the movie and Tom Jane narrated. Now it didn't follow the fucking.
Oh, I remember
movie.
that.
It was its
I
own
remember
thing.
that game.
Holy shit! You
so
were like
violent.
dunking people's head. Yes, like putting people's heads in piranha bowls and like fucking putting them through meat grinders and shit. And I was like, dude, this is a fucking awesome game though. I love it. I played the fuck out of that game.
I'm just reading this now. The original Manhunt was banned from sale in 2004 in Australia after 18,000 copies had been sold.
Oh wow! Imagine, dude, if you had one of those, how much that shit would go for.
All right, whenever I finally visit Zoab, I'll smuggle you some black market copies of Manhunt. And
they'll
bring
be
a
region
PlayStation
locked,
2.
baby. They'll be region locked. I won't be able to play them. Fucking shit.
Jesus. So yeah, this is where Red awakens in the Black Skull's humble abode. He's handcuffed to a pipe. We get this Jesus wood imagery, like we've been talking, like I've just been hammering in, like the nails in Jesus's hand. No, that's terrible. No, Red does manage to defeat one of them and free himself and begins to stalk the others. This was talking about that Manhunt imagery. That's all I could fucking think of the whole time. Red kills Knife Dick and then Shotgun Boy. That's what my notes say from 2 weeks ago. So in the most like basic, I was like, what am I going to call this guy? He's like, Shotgun Boy. It's like whatever. We get the great "You Rip My Shirt" line, and oh my god, him, like the guy on the couch. I'm like, are you just like? It makes me think of the Family Guy episode where Peter busts in on Joe's kid and he screams and he goes, he was masturbating with a knife. And I was like, oh God, like that's all I could fucking think of the whole time as I was watching
Is this guy actually like about to masturbate? Is that what's about to happen? Or is he like, I can't remember. Is he doing it? Because there's something like more creepier to me than someone who just sits down and watches porn just for pleasure. Like, you know, like without like cranking down or anything. Like, you know, it's just like he's watching it just to kind of like watch it.
This is just my
something
pastime.
As he stands up, like after they crush on the table and he stands up. I just don't know. Like I have so many questions. Like you see this like giant blade protruding from like his like dick area, and I'm like, what the fuck is like what the hell? But him slitting his throat, all the blood going into Cage's. I was like,
dude, yeah, into his mouth and face and eyes. Oh God.
God damn it. He snaps this dude's neck, and this is where he takes the glass, snorts the blow, and then takes a hit of some like military grade fucking LSD. Like Jesus Christ.
Just gets his fucking brain melted immediately. And I really do take it on Carruthers' word here of like, this is the moment. This is really the beginning moment of he enters the world of pain and starts to fucking love it and never turns back. Like this is you took their horrific tainted LSD, man. Like you're going down the path now.
Oh yeah, like there's something interesting about, like I said, seeing Red's character, and I want to beat a dead horse, but seeing him having to kind of like fall toward, like it's like going towards the dark side, like fighting fire with fire. But there's also something interesting about like the telepathic kind of feel of like the LSD, like where he sees the big radio array tower, and it's kind of like it's like a vision quest in a way. And I was like, this is fucking cool. Like there's something almost like weirdly telepathic about that, and I think it's really interesting. But this is where oh yeah, and he also arrows that guy in the throat in front of the flaming car. Holy shit! like at first I was like, this guy's a dummy. Like, did you guys think this was a real person? Because I totally thought this was just like a mannequin standing there.
For a minute, I get why you think that. Yeah, he's so stiff and awkward, and just like he doesn't even look like a person. And then that moment where he actually hits him with the fucking arrow that goes through his neck, and he just continues to stand there and just pulls it through. Like, Jesus. I
couldn't even imagine what that would feel like. Like, given what he's on, like, I don't know. Like, that's one of those few things where it's like, I would rather ponder Lovecraftian monsters than try and think of the life that person lives. Like, holy shit. But Red, he kills a guy, chops his head off. She's burning. Like, oh my God.
So fucking metal.
Yeah. And of course he chops his fucking head off, lights the cigarette off the dude's head. I was like, holy shit, that's fucking awesome. And this is where Red takes the ATV and he hits the road, eventually finding the chemist, aka Joe Chill from Batman. Zoheb, what did you think about this scene? Like, did anything like jump out to you? Or are you still kind of like, what the fuck?
I mean, to be honest, I can't fully remember what happened here. So, what does he do with the chemist again? The chemist has a pet tiger, right? Like is that
right? Yeah.
Why?
He
Why
goes to the.
Does he have a pet tiger? God damn it! Someone give me some answers.
He unleashes the tiger. The tiger's red, baby.
Well, and there's something interesting where he says that I guess he's giving this tiger LSD, and I was like, all I wanted to see at the end was like one person get out, like Jeremiah Swan, just like running through the woods, and he thinks he's fine, and the tiger just mauls him. Like, I just wanted to see like the end of Naked Gun where that tiger just mauls that fucking guy.
Red just rides off on an also tripping tiger.
Right. But yeah, this whole scene with the chemist, he's just going for information. He's like, where are they? And he tells me, he's like, oh yeah, they did you wrong and blah, blah, blah. But it's interesting because it's like chaotic good in a way, which is like Red, and then chaotic bad, which I feel like is the children. And there's the neutral, which is the chemist.
Agree.
He's kind of both in between. He's like, I don't really pick a side. I don't care.
Well, and I think I actually would 100% agree with that, Colin. I'm glad you said that, because I had a lot of trouble figuring out this scene through my the lens of looking at this movie through color. And because it's so white and gray, and you're like, what the fuck does this mean? There's some blacks here, but it's mostly washed out white. And I think you're exactly on it, of like, he is this totally neutral, like unfeeling kind of person, but even though he can like see a lot of interesting things, like some of the stuff he says to Red here, I love, where he goes, you exude a cosmic darkness. Do you see that? And it cuts to his feet on the ground and just covered in those like writhing black, like centipedes or something. And I really do get, I interpreted that as Red really can't see it yet. Like this guy, because he's so weirdly neutral, is able to like see people's, I don't know, it's gonna be fucking hippy dippy, but like auras or whatever they have that like it shows how they're actually feeling or who they really are. And I think this is also a big foreshadowing moment to, because I guess I can kind of go ahead and say it. We're in the final stretch of the movie here. My take on the ending of this movie, which I think is kind of hinted at and foreshadowed in this scene, is that Red becomes the new Black Skull. Like, that's what he is at the end of this movie. He has nothing left to live for. He lives in a world of pain. He's taken the LSD. He's drenched in blood. He's seen in mostly black. Like by the end of this movie, his features are washed out and oversaturated, like all the other extreme colored scenes. And he's one of the Black Skulls. Like he's ruined his life is just, it's been completely transformed. And that's where he's headed. And I think the chemist can already see that. Of like, you basically,
and that ties into that ties into your Four Horsemen theory, Colin. Like, I mean, like,
it's kind of the thing of like, fighting fire with fire. You have to become, if you're gonna try and fight something that's like superhuman in a way, which is, I mean, the best I can describe, like they aren't superhuman, but they are at the same time. Like the perception of reality is so different now that it's like, oh God, I mean, it's like unquantifiable. I can't imagine what their perception of reality is. And the things they're able, like that guy gets shot in the neck with the arrow. He doesn't even flinch. He's probably like, huh, that's weird. like just sitting there playing with the arrow.
This tickles.
Yeah. And, so the chemist tells him that they're up north. He continues on his kill quest again after arriving. Red gets stuck and abandons the ATV and promptly has himself a nice little murder nap.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. In the middle of all this, you got a murder nap. You got to take care of yourself. When he awakes, he finds the children's church and starts stalking them like motherfucking Jason Voorhees.
I love it.
The church looks amazing. That's some awesome set design. That's really fucking cool. I really, really, really like that a lot. And it makes me think, like I said earlier, that temple jungle. That's like all I could think of. I was like, holy shit. Like that's like Forest Church Temple Jungle? Like that. I think that's going to be my new band name is Temple Jungle or Forest Church. That sounds pretty cool. He starts killing him like Jason Voorhees. He sets traps for Brother Swan and Lucy. Now, he ultimately deep throats Brother Swan to death.
So good.
But what is why does he let Lucy go?
I still take it as sort of a pity. Like he knows that
Like
she,
she's like,
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like I was gonna say, yeah, that she's a puppet of sand, right? Like she's not really. She doesn't have that much agency.
Yes, I think it ties back to that moment where like Red, his only time he saw or interacted with her at all was watching her, almost shoot herself to prove her, loyalty or love or whatever to Jeremiah, which obviously Red sees through as bullshit. And I think he sees the fact that, she is just like a victim of these people, really.
Yeah, that's what I think is interesting is why I guess it really wouldn't make much sense to let her go if we didn't have those scenes of the Russian roulette and like the quaint kind of shy, like hesitancy that she has through the whole thing. That's really interesting. That's why I like her character a lot of like, how the fuck did you fall in with these people?
Yeah.
Like this is probably normal girl from a nice family, dated the same guy in high school for like 3 years. And then like, what the fuck happened? Like, how did you end up here?
Too many Netflix documentaries on cults. That's all I'm saying. That's what happens. That's what happens.
Her parents probably were like, she started playing Dungeons and Dragons and then it just went downhill from
she
there.
started playing banned video games. Never got her back.
Oh God, I was watching King of the Hill the other day, fucking amazing show. And the principal was, it's where Connie threatens to kill herself. And the principal's like, I just got to make sure we ain't got some, I jump, you jump, Dungeons and Dragons type crap. And I fucking laughed my ass off, dude. I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there. But yeah, he shows up, and he starts kind of stalking them. He kills him. Oh my God, I love that. Like, it's so fucking brutal. And at first I was like,
so brutal.
Yeah, he's fucking got him good. And then it goes farther and I was like, oh fuck. I was like, Jesus Christ. He lets Lucy go. Red Tomahawk axe throw kills Brother Mullet. I fucking love that.
His fucking stupid slack jaw yokel mouth for this whole movie. I was like, when is he gonna die? I hate him. I was so excited for him to get it.
Some folks on down on get about, and then again, some folk like Cletus, the slack jaw yokel. But yeah, he God, I love seeing that axe just come flying through. A lot of that reminded me of like Sin City for some reason. I don't know why. Like the blood and the way that like the guy getting shot through the neck reminds me of the guy in Sin City who gets shot through the head with an arrow, and he's like, "Hey, what is this about? This hurts." Like he's just like sitting there like, what the fuck? So he kills this, so he kills Brother Mullet, and he starts this chainsaw fight with the guy who looks like Triple H and fucking Wingro had a baby. It's weird. But I feel like the bigger chainsaw though, when it comes out again, I'm thinking 80s, everything was bigger and louder and meaner, and everything was like, I don't know. There's definitely some phallic shit about it, and like the male super ego and it and shit like that I just don't like. I'm sure if I took the time to read about it, I'd be like, oh, this is interesting, but I'm like, off the top of my head, all I'm thinking is just like a phallic representation of the 80s. That's like all I can fucking think of. So they have their chainsaw fight. He ultimately wins by disemboweling him on his extremely phallic chainsaw. Red finally enters the church itself and descends like he's going into hell. It's like Dante's Inferno. There's red everywhere. Just like, and it was crazy. I put this in notes 2 weeks ago before I started even thinking about colors and shit. And then Matt said that. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. He's met by Mother Merlin, and she attempts to seduce him, but she ends up being beheaded. Instead of giving head, she is beheaded.
She becomes head.
Yeah. Now, and there's something interesting about that of like playing up to, I don't know, in a weird way, like playing up to her strengths. Like she does seem kind of like a seducer in a way, you know, totally. Like there is playing to that kind of only thing that she knows, and not the only thing that probably Jeremiah has made her do stuff like that before, and that's why she's like, well, this might work, fuck it, I'll try this.
Her whole life is Jeremiah, and the only way she's ever kept his attention is like that.
Right, she winds up like fucking one of Henry VIII's wives. So what I think is interesting is when he comes in there, you know, and he's saying, you know, God is in here, and it's kind of interesting because it's like, yeah, I'm here. Like Red's like, yeah. It's me.
So here's okay. You ready for my weird bullshit crazy theory again? So this is kind of
there's more.
No, there's definitely more. Oh God, there's so much more. My manifesto is so long.
Hit me.
But no. So I kind of interpret this scene, and again, I know this is like, I would say this. As far as the colors equating to emotions, I think even the director, Panos Cosmatos, would probably be like, yeah, that's actually what I was going for. Like, I'm pretty confident with that. I think that is genuinely the visual language of this movie is based on colors. But the whole psychological aspect of, I think Red and Jeremiah are two halves of one person fighting for like emotional or psychological dominance over the body or whatever, however you want to think of it. That might be a little more me. I'm not as confident of like, oh, that's exactly what the director was going for. I'm like, I don't know. But I interpret this room as the final place within whoever this person's is, their brain. Like they're having this confrontation, the two halves, the two different emotional sides or logics of their brain, because what do we have? Jeremiah in there alone saying, God is in here. I'm God. And when Red finally kills him, he, you know, stands over him and crushes his fucking head in his hands, metal as fuck. But he says, I'm your God now. Like he has destroyed the other part of himself. And what do we have left? It's a Red with only anger and rage and hatred. Like that's all he has left. He's the God of this person now, you know, the captain of his destiny, whatever. That's all you have. That's what we're left with. But what I also think is so fucking interesting about this scene is this is one of the only times in the movie, I wouldn't say sympathy. I don't have sympathy for Jeremiah in this scene or in any scene, but I do genuinely think he does see Red and is trying to help him a little bit in this moment where he's saying, look at you, man. He's like, it's that hatred in your heart. It follows you everywhere you go. And I actually think he's right as far as his analysis of Red in this moment, because if you want to look at it from this angle of like, all right, they are each two halves of one person, well, then the jealousy and the hatred and the anger, that's all a part of Red, just like the narcissism and the self-involvement and the greed and the envy are Jeremiah. You kind of have this clash between the two things, and it's like Jeremiah can see that, hey, no, guess what, Red? You've always been an angry, brutal person. You just had Mandy around to kind of balance you. Like that part of you has been in control for a while now, but now that she's gone, the true side of you comes out of this like angry, you know, black, brutal, rage-filled person. Like we're seeing it explode out. And Red is kind of like lost control of it. And so I think there is like this interesting tension here of like Jeremiah's kind of right about Red in a way, but also Jeremiah's a piece of shit and Red destroys him. So here we are.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because it's like, well, Mandy would just kept those things to check, and it's like, yes, and you are the one who broke the seal.
Totally.
You removed the levee.
Totally.
Like you kind of pushed it into this. But the interesting thing is whereas a movie that I feel like there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief from the director's point of view, where he said that he was thinking about his parents, and the whole thing of grieving, where Red is grieving for the loss of Mandy. And then there's something about the grief in it as well, as Jeremiah is sitting there on his knees, and he almost goes through the 5 stages like perfectly of grief, like almost like perfectly. He goes, what is it? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. He denies Red's ability to hurt him. He calls him meat without a soul. He bargains for his life with oral sex and says he can save Red's soul, but at the last second he reverts and demands that Red kneel before him. So it's kind of like he's in denial. He's angry about it. He starts bargaining. He does get depressed, but then at the end, instead of accepting it, he just goes right back to denial. Right. And he denies the whole thing. So I think it's interesting seeing him almost get through those 5 stages and going right back to the denial of it.
And he was so deep in the acceptance of point there. He was like, "I'll suck your dick, man. I'll take it."
Oh, God. Imagine looking down and seeing Iggy Pop suck on your balls. That's fucking gross. Just this scaly, leathery man. Like,
but with so much experience and technique.
Yeah. He was in California in the 60s. That guy can suck a dick. Hey, $20 is $20. That's all I'm saying. No, the I am your God now, Red says before crushing in Jeremiah's skull and burning down his church. I like this whole thing of Red leaving, and we're everything's very I don't know. It looks totally different from when he looks over and sees Mandy there, and everything looks a lot more like pretty in a way. Everything looks more, colorful, and he's like, the world is right. Like, this is cool. And then when we come back to what we actually see, it's just him alone in the car, looking like a fucking demon. Like, holy shit. Yeah. But I love all of that. And as he drives off, we see, is this where we see like the sun, like the crazy sunset, if that's what we want to call it, like the fact that Red's world has just changed. Like, it's insane, right? And I've heard a couple of people say like, oh, Red was on a different planet the whole time, or like this symbolizes, Red, his world will never be the same now, and his world is this crazy hyper LSD fantasy horror rage world. And I was like, fuck, that's kind of crazy too. Like, both those seem to make sense, but like, what did you guys interpret of the ending of this as he's driving off and we see, like, is he actually on a different planet literally, or is this just like a metaphorical thing? Like, what did you think?
What's your take,
sorry, I've been silent for the last little bit, like listening to you guys' theories. I'm just totally blown away. I absolutely do not think they're physically on a different planet. Like, it's totally metaphorical. I think the meaning here is like ties into what, like, the conversation between Mandy and Red earlier. Like, he's like, oh, I'm Jupiter, but then he's like, no, I'm actually Galactus, Eater of Worlds, and like he literally becomes Galactus at the end of this movie.
Totally.
And like, it's no coincidence that he's driving away and that's literally Jupiter right there. Like, I don't fully know how to tie those things together, but I mean, like, I know that there is something there. Well, do you have anything to kind of like go into that, Matt?
I mean, for one, I think it's interesting that
validate my opinion is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, for sure. Time to validate. Here's my punch card. But what I love about this ending scene too is that we actually see the very first time they meet. Like, that's what I thought was so cool. It's not just him imagining her or thinking about her. It's the moment that they very first met. And, they're at some bar or some club or some shit. And I love that, when we see Mandy's face, again, it's just a wash in color. Like, she's just this gorgeous, colorful, everything, colors all around her. And we see Red, it's all black and white and washed out and gray. And he notices her, he looks at her, and it fades to black and then explodes into color all around him. Like, it makes him feel again, like meeting this woman. And like, we have all this like array of colors around the both of them. And then again, we go back to the car and it becomes basically just Red with a little bit of purplish kind of blue around Mandy. And then back to Red covered in blood, and it's completely washed out. Like, you kind of get almost like it's like a miniaturized version of the whole movie in this like 20 seconds, where we go from washed out and gray to sort of a blended, vivid colors to now just completely oversaturated mono color, where it's like there's no subtlety anymore. He lives in a world of pure red and black rage, and that's it. That's all he has left. And he's kind of living off of this acid-induced fantasy / memory of his girlfriend Mandy, and that's all he has. Whereas in my mind, also in my theory, at least, about Jeremiah and Red, if they are the same person, he's also living with the guilt of his own insecurity and jealousy, destroying his relationship, destroying Mandy, and leaving him with nothing. And he's just driving off into this like wasteland world. And again, I agree with you, Zoe, that like this is not physical, this is not real. That this is just like a representation of his world's changed. And for one, he's got scrambled eggs brains from all them drugs, and he's never gonna see the world normally ever again. And that's all he has left. It's a sad fucking ending, man. It's kind of a tragic ending.
Right. Well, especially that scene at the end where we see them actually, like you said, the origin of them meeting and seeing the color. And I think doesn't she cry? Isn't she crying when they first, like, you see the blues and the greens kind of like wash over them, and it's a great scene. Nicolas Cage looks incredible. Like holy shit, it's hard to describe just the way he looks at her, but it's so bland when we see him.
So bland.
It's just a smoky room. It's just whatever. It's not a big thing. And then as soon as he looks up and he sees her, that's where the color just washes over everything. And you're so like, holy shit, like it's right. And I think that this is only here because I think it's him. He looks and sees Mandy in the car, and he's kind of like, yeah, that's the way things were. And this is like the last time that I'll see those reds and blues. Again, the disorder and the chaos together. We see like some blues, we see some reds, we see some greens, but it always ends up coming back to the red. And I think I love what Matt is saying about this, with the red being, and you could say fucking literally red is the like god of war now. Like that's kind of the feeling that I got coming away from this. I feel like he is like the Mad Max now. He's not Max Rockastansky, he's Mad Max now. Like he's kind of dipped his toe into the insanity. Like you've looked into the abyss, and the abyss looked back into you, and it has taken a part of you, and you can't just become Max Rockastansky again. Right. So that's just my interpretation of the end of this. I'm going to send me that picture, or no, post it in the after party. Post your costume in there. I want to see that shit again.
Will do.
But I mean, that's pretty much Mandy. I say we wrap with some final thoughts and get the fuck out of here. Zoheb, you go ahead.
Well, no, honestly, having this conversation just kind of opened up a lot of avenues for me. Like initially, like I said, this film it's tough to grasp. Like this might have been one of the more, like, again, it's abstract, and it's really, really, interpretive, and it's very man, I can't even like think of words to describe this movie. It's such a unique movie, and like I can't really even like, I don't know. I can't put it into words. All I can say is that I really want to watch it again now. And I didn't say that at the start of the episode. I said, I'll probably never see this again. But like after hearing you guys like thoughts on it and like, different takes on it, I will, eventually pick this up again. I'll eventually like have a deeper look into it, and different, like, see what Panos Cosmatos was going for, but not even that. Like kind of like seeing what other like people kind of like take from it. This is absolutely, without a doubt, one of the most visually interesting movies I've ever seen in my life. Like that is not, again, not hyperbole, not exaggeration. This is just such a stunning looking movie. Like the scene that we talked about earlier with the blending of the two faces between Mandy and Sand is just, again, nothing I've ever seen before in my life. And I'd really love to know how they pulled it off, like how they kind of did the matching of it in editing. I think the acting in this is kind of like astounding. Who's the actor again that plays Sand, Colin? Whatever. Fuck. But anyway, like Batman's dad, like he's fucking he's cool, man. Like he's definitely, Colin. You said
Linus Roach.
You said he's your MVP. I think he's mine as well, with Andrea Riseborough closely behind. Like, she does a great job in this movie, man. Like, she's fantastic, and she's not even in it like for the whole movie. Nicolas Cage is good, but this is not a Nicolas Cage movie. Like, people. I don't want people to kind of get confused, and I'd like to go back and see the trailer for this movie to see how they'd market it, because I wonder if they market it as like a crazy Nicolas Cage action film and not really what it is, because this movie would be a tough sell. Like, this would be the marketing department's worst nightmare.
Oh, totally. Yeah, you're like, what the fuck do we do?
Right, like exactly. Panos, can you just include some more, like actual Nick Cageisms in here that we can chuck into the trailer, please? Like, I feel like that was a conversation that happened. But yeah, man, like I'm glad you chose this movie, Matt. I'm really glad that you made us watch this, because this was always a movie that I was eventually going to see, but like this podcast gave me the incentive to go finally check it out. After hearing Matt Vella's review of this movie, that the first half was not as good as the second half. Again, disagree. I think I'm just looking. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this movie again.
Hell
really appreciate it, Matt. Yeah,
definitely.
Matt, go for it.
Not gonna lie, I feel pretty fucking tapped. But yeah, I do hope if anybody's fucking listening who hasn't watched this movie, which also I'm like, wow, we've talked about this movie for longer than it exists. But go watch this movie.
That's what we do here at Midnight Double Feature.
We fucking go through it. But no, if nothing else, like I feel like this is truly one of those movies. This is one of those movies where it's one of my own personal favorites, but there are times where, depending on who somebody is, if they're like, hey, should I go watch that? I'm like, nah, you won't be into it. Like, you won't. Like, yeah. I know there are people who I'm like, I can think of people off the top of my head who I'm like, I wouldn't recommend this to them. They wouldn't enjoy it. They wouldn't care about it. It's not their thing. But if you have even a little just crumb of curiosity about this movie, watch it once. Like, it is like what you're saying, Zoe. Like, there is no other movie like it. It has a style, just a visual style and look that is just all its own. It's so interesting. Like, I really do think, take this movie, if you're only going to watch it one time, take it in for the visuals. Like, focus on the visuals more than anything else. Like, the music's beautiful, the dialogue is strange but interesting, but just watch the visuals and the colors and just let it just wash over you. Just experience the damn thing. Go see it in a movie theater if you can. It's coming back around. This is going to be one of those weird, like, Alamo Drafthouse, yeah, we're just going to keep it in theaters forever, like cult classics. I can see it already happening. So if there's any chance at all you can watch this on a big screen, go do it, because that scene where Mandy is trading faces with Jeremiah, it will blow your mind. It's so great. Yeah, I'm all about it, man. This is up there for me.
Well, hell yeah, dude. I enjoyed it. It's one of those things where, exactly like we've been talking about, it is an experience. It doesn't really feel like a movie, whereas with film, through story and characters and stuff, we're supposed to feel different by the end of it. But instead of that, we do get a little bit of that through characters and dialogue and action and stuff like that. But we actually feel more of that just from the setting. It's a very cerebral, subconscious kind of film. Film. Jesus Christ, that slipped out. But no, it feels like it's changing your mood and it's changing your perception of things, not through dialogue and not through the characters and stuff, but through the sound, through the actual positioning of the camera. The color is like what you said, man. Without color, this film is, imagine watching this in black and white. What the fuck? That would just be it'd be insane. So I think that this movie is something that stacks up with stuff like Donnie Darko, or like I said, fucking goddamn it, Requiem for a Dream and Clockwork Orange and stuff like that. It's stuff that I really only have to see like once or twice and just kind of be like, oh, okay, cool. I still remember it very well, and I think this movie has a very lasting impression with you, where it's I don't know, when you watch something that's this vibrant, this colorful, and it's this like cinematic, and then you go out into your everyday life, you're like, shit's boring. Like, what the fuck? Like this shit is so plain now. But all in all, I really enjoyed it. And I think that, like I said, at least even if you don't, no, I don't enjoy it as much as Matt does, but I also still appreciate the fact for its originality and the fact that it is something totally in a league all of its own. Maybe there are other films like it, but I can't fucking think of it off the top of my head. And I think this is more of a, like I said, it's more of an experience than a film, and that's the best way I would describe it to anybody. Like, go in with an open mind, be patient, and don't worry about the story. And it's not like another movie that you've probably seen somewhere down the line. It's not Death Wish. It's not Death Sentence. It's not these like revenge films. Even though it is centered around that core, but it's just not that at all. It's only surface level. Right. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my closing thoughts. I've definitely got, where is it? I'm going to play a little game here while we got Matt on. It's called 1 Star Unsubscribe. This is 1 star reviews on IMDb. It's crazy. This movie has like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb, it has a 6.6. And
that's the difference between
that's
the difference between an audience review score and a critic review score, because Rotten Tomatoes is critics and IMDb is audience.
Yeah. This is posted by, I don't even gotta fucking try to say that name. Both reviewers and critics are seriously stoned here. No way this piece of shit gets anything more than 1 star unless you run the movie at 3 times speed and get a 2, maybe. Nicolas Cage totally outperformed himself with this one. Having watched his last masterworks, I honestly thought he couldn't get any worse, but he once again delivered. The crew should be sued or shot. Boy. Both work.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, 1 star unsubscribe.
Holy shit.
No. Yeah, that one was like, when I read it, I was like, holy shit. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for listening. We've had a lot of fun doing this. Matt, thanks for coming on. Obviously, you're always welcome. Yeah. Let's try to fucking cram you in a 4th hole. Let's do another one. Yeah, obviously, we always love having the guys from LSG and, anybody else from our growing podcast family community that we seem to have. And I was telling Zoe, it would be so much fucking fun to do like a podcast road trip, leave here, go to like Ohio and hang out with Floyd from Pop List, then go to Chicago with Hey Do You Remember, drive to Boston, and then go up to like LSG and then drive down. And like, well, I guess I'd have to hit the boys up at Countdown to Geek Town because they're closer to us first. So we hit them up first.
Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be paying for the nose for that one.
What you do is you get a blow-up doll and tape a picture of Zoheb's face to the front of it, and that way we just do the podcast like we do now.
Why is it going to be a fucking blow-up doll? What do you want to do with it? What the fuck? What do you want to do to me?
Hey, it's a long trip. It's a long trip, okay? That's all I'm saying. No, but guys, thanks so much for tuning in, Matt. Always welcome on here. Thanks so much for coming on and picking us and forcing us to watch this movie.
Thanks for tolerating my weird stoner theories about the movie too. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, it really it's interesting, and I love like fan theories about shit. I get balls deep into that with like Stranger Things and stuff, but they're usually not that abstract. But hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But guys, thanks for staying late. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this feature presentation, and we will catch you next time. Cue that outro music.